before we get into talking about meat and the bulletproof diet and things like that, I wanted to remind people who are listening that if you go to bulletproofdietbook.com, you can sign up to get the first chapter of the book as it comes out. This morning we're going to go through and we're going to talk quite a bit about why all this stuff I'm talking about works, why the things you heard yesterday about the different categories of food. Just give you the high-level overview so you can understand that when you decide to take control of your biology, that you'll understand enough about what it's doing that you can feel confident that there's some reason that you were able to lose weight and not feel hunger and things like that. So it's not just sort of magic. Also, today, if you use the code BPVIBE and you're interested in one of the Bulletproof Vibes, for the first 5 people, you can get $200 off. And these things cost 10% of what some of the other whole body vibration platforms cost. So they're designed to be there in a home at basically the price of a treadmill or less. I'm super excited about those. I use one every day when I'm home, and it's amazing. And we also have a general discount code for the upgraded self or the bulletproof site if you're interested in some of the other supplements. This is for people who are watching live, so you have access and a chance to try these things. Yesterday, we talked about the Bulletproof Diet Roadmap. This roadmap comes in full detail when you pay for the course. You'll be some of the first people ever to see this. This will be the backbone of the new book that comes out. And I mentioned where to get it. Well, the 2 places you can get it now, or you can wait 3 months and get it when the book comes out. Today, though, we're going to go into the protein segment that's on there. And towards the end of this segment, we'll also talk about when should you eat. Because it's not just about how much should you eat. It's a combination of what do you eat, how much of it do you eat, and when do you eat it. Because those are the big 3 variables that are going to control almost everything that your body does in response to food. So each of them can be optimized. You don't have to always do the most optimal thing, but if it didn't make a difference to you and you have 2 choices and you don't care which one you take, why don't you take the one that gives you a slight advantage? And if you build that kind of thinking into your life to say, you know, today there were many different paths I could have taken, and I just always took the one that didn't cost me anything but gave me an advantage. It might only be 1%, but it's like an interest rate on a bank account. I only got 0.5%, but it compounds. So every time you save a little bit of energy for something that actually mattered, you win. And when you build that into your lifestyle, into the way you eat, the way you sleep, everything you do, it becomes effortless and really invisible to you. But suddenly at the end of the day, you have a dividend. This is the time and the energy you get back that you didn't have before. When it comes to this bulletproof diet and choosing proteins, this is one of the areas where so many people make mistakes because we've been taught a protein is a protein. So protein's good. That means I can eat gluten. It's a protein. In fact, you'll find a lot of vegetarian things that are protein replacements. Well, they have enough protein in them, and the fact that it's gluten, which has been shown in lots of studies to be inflammatory and to be what I would just call a suboptimal protein for humans, that'll be equated logically with something like what we have over here, grass-fed lamb, for instance. So these simply aren't the same thing. They're not the same food, and they do different things in the body. When you look at the bulletproof diet and this idea that some are going to be less inflammatory or more nutritious than others, on this side you have really the good stuff. If it ate grass, if it was pastured, you get an advantage. And people ask questions like, why would pastured pork? And pastured means that it lived on a pasture, not a feedlot, and that it actually ate what the animal normally would eat. Pigs, though, if you've ever seen pigs, they'll eat kind of anything. So it's a question of what did the pig eat at that farm? Am I picky? Sorry, maybe. But if you eat pork from an animal that ate low-quality grain at a feedlot, the things that grow on the grain, mostly a fungus called Fusarium, it bioaccumulates in the pig's fat. This isn't well known, but there are studies on PubMed that talk about the seasonality of pork. It turns out winter pork and spring pork that ate stored grain, has 5 or 10 times the amount of toxin in its flesh. And people who eat more of that during those times tend to get more diseases that are correlated with those toxins. So this isn't just like, oh no, it might be bad. It's that doctors and epidemiologists discovered this relationship. So what that means to you is the quality of your food is directly based on what your food ate. Plants eat soil. They eat air, they eat sunshine, they eat water. The quality of those things affect your plant foods, and your meat foods, the quality of the plants or even other proteins that they eat affects you. So what I'm saying in this infographic here is stick to the stuff that ate really good stuff and the things that have the right kinds of protein. The other reason that you'd see pork over here is that pork, even when it's fed the perfect sort of clean diet, still has a lot of the omega-6 oils, which can be more inflammatory than the saturated fats or the omega-3 oils. That said, I cure my own bacon at home, and it's amazing, and there's nothing wrong with bacon. But go back to that discussion we had yesterday about cooking techniques. So if you're going to take your bacon and fry it at high temperature so it spits all over, a little bit of smoke coming off it, it's nice and crunchy, you're pretty much destroying those fats. So when you cook your bacon, turn it down, let it cook a little bit longer so the fat's rendered and the bacon's cooked, but it's not super crunchy and crispy. I know crispy bacon is delicious, it's just inflammatory. The quality of your thinking of how you feel based on well done bacon versus medium or lightly cooked bacon is noticeable. Do a test. Have bacon only for breakfast. Do it too much one time and do it less cooked another time, and you'll feel different later. And that's normal. That's how biology works. The other two things that work really well are hydrolyzed collagen and whey protein isolate. The new bulletproof diet includes whey concentrate, and there's big debate amongst those who eat whey about the right kind of whey to do. What I did in order to get good quality things, I put together upgraded collagen, which comes from grass-fed, low-temperature, enzymatically processed collagen. So you want collagen in the body as a way of hydrating your tissues and as a building block for things like bones and for the fascia that holds your organs together. I am unusually flexible, and part of the reason for that is that I make collagen a regular part of my diet. This is a great protein source because collagen doesn't have the inflammatory proteins that whey contains, but whey protein also has some things that collagen and other proteins don't have in it. A lot of people who work out a lot will say, I gotta have my whey. And in fact, some of the really big ripped bodybuilders do that, but they get inflammation around the midsection from too much whey. So the way that I recommend you use whey is you go for very high quality whey protein, and you do it only 2 tablespoons a day. And you're using whey there for its immune stimulating and for its antioxidant and basically liver qualities, in that whey helps to form glutathione in the liver. So this is a very powerful combination of not just whey, it's grass-fed, low-temperature processed whey that came not as a cheese byproduct, but as something that came directly from the milk to the whey factory. It's kind of funny, you go back 20 years ago, the people who make cheese were dumping their whey in rivers and killing fish. Whey was an industrial byproduct. And then someone figured out that you can actually eat that stuff, and it actually does good things. And suddenly the whey protein industry was born. There's just a little problem with that. Not all milk that goes into making cheese is the same. Not all whey that comes out of a cheese plant is the same. And we have a whole huge different set of processing techniques you can do that affect how the whey affects you. Most whey, in my experience, isn't a great long-term protein source, but using whey as a way to help your body get rid of toxins in the liver and to help your body have a healthy immune system is a really good idea. Just don't make that mistake of over-consuming whey. From a fish perspective, I'm scared about the state of the oceans on the world right now. Not only do we have new questions about radioactive fish because of the nuclear accident in Japan, but we've already had issues around mercury, and it's been getting worse for the past 20 or so years. The reason it's been getting worse is that we have an enormous amount of coal being burned to generate electricity. Coal naturally contains mercury, So the smoke from coal goes into the atmosphere, and we're dumping tons and tons of the mercury that comes out in rain, basically, into the oceans. When fish eat plankton and they eat low on the food chain, mercury bioaccumulates. It stays in the fat, it stays in the tissues, and then when we eat fish, like swordfish or tuna or shark in particular, we're getting a ton of mercury, enough that if you're pregnant, you actually shouldn't even eat this at all. There are warnings even here in San Francisco. Do not eat fish consumed from the bay more than once a week. Those warnings translate to me as maybe I ought to just eat it less than once a week. But at the same time, wild-caught fish gives you the essential fatty acids, EPA and DHA. So if you're trying to optimize, what do? You don't avoid all seafood, because when you go to a restaurant, seafood's oftentimes your best choice. If all they have is industrial beef that was fed some combination of antibiotics and corn and soy and GMO things, well, then what you should do is you should choose an optimal fish. So here, things like anchovies, haddock, sole, sardines, and sockeye salmon are really good choices. If you go down here to the high mercury or farm seafood, you end up with this Norwegian farm salmon problem, where it's almost like eating feedlot beef, where the fatty acid in those salmon is not right. They don't even have the right color until you add the coloring agents to them. So it's tough. If you're sitting down in a restaurant, what are you going to do? Well, order the wild-caught fish is a pretty good answer. That's what I do most of the time. And if it has mercury in it, yesterday we talked about detoxing remedies. My assumption is that I'm going to get more toxins than cavemen did. Because as much as I love my paleo brothers out there, the cavemen didn't deal with some of the stuff. They weren't burning that much coal back then. So the fish they ate was pretty much fish. And here we end up saying these are fish that are relatively safe. And you can even see, if you look at the sockeye salmon at the top here, the Copper River sockeye salmon is one of the really good ones. It's got like a nice rich orange-red color. And if you go and you buy a farm salmon, it doesn't have that same hue even. It's more like a pale orange. And you can see a difference, very thin marbling of fat on here, but this is the most valuable fat you can get from fish. Whereas the stuff you'll buy at a typical sushi restaurant is not nearly as marbled like that. It has big white stripes in it. Those are actually not the right kind of fat, and there's more of it. So who would have thought that it made such a big difference? We also go over here to the the pastured chicken and turkey. Why would they be over here on the orange side of things versus the green side? Any guesses from the audience? This always throws people for a loop, because we all on chicken breasts, you know. I eat my kale, I exercise every day, I floss and eat my chicken breast. I must be a good person. But because they're eating corn. That's one of the reasons. Dried corn, the vast majority of corn accumulates stuff that accumulates in chickens, but even if they're like outdoor chickens that do amazing outdoor chicken bird things, I've spent like 2 years on the quest for the perfect chicken. It's like, oh, let's feed it some coconut so it'll have more saturated fat, and let's let it, live in nature and massage it gently every day. Even when you do all that, the fatty acid ratio in the chicken, it comes out to have a ton of omega-6 oil. And the bottom line there is we're not that related to chickens, who are more related to dinosaurs than to people. So can we eat a chicken? Yeah. We can definitely survive on chickens. Do they give us the right kind of fat? Not necessarily. So it tends to bump up your ratio of omega-6s. So if you're going to eat birds like that, take the skin off. The advice there that you got from your mom, the skinless chicken breast, that would be the way to get your protein from the chicken.
Yeah, there's a lot of discussion about omega-3 versus omega-6, and sometimes too much omega-3 can also, give you bad effects as well. How do you know exactly where you're shooting for personally? Is there some tests or something you can do to know if you should be acting to reduce omega-6 or boosting omega-3?
Unquestionably, if you live in the West, you should be acting to lower omega-6 in your diet. In fact, it's so common that you're not going to be able to eat no omega-6, and that would be harmful. You need very vanishingly small amounts of it, so I make choices to eliminate omega-6 wherever I can. And you can get a blood test that looks at the ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 in your blood. The average American is 40 to 1. That's 40 inflammatory omega-6s to 1 omega-3. My last one was 1.28 to 1. The anti-aging crowd oftentimes says, well, our target's 4 to 1, but it's hard to do. And the reason it's hard to do is that if you don't consider that saturated fat is not a 6 or a 3, then it's very hard to do. But because we bump up the butter in the diet, that means you are still getting some omega-3 from the grass-fed butter. You're getting your egg yolks from healthy chickens, and you're getting even omega-3 from the grass-fed meats. They're full of omega-3. Grass-fed beef has a profile that looks more like salmon than you would expect. So when you do that and you supplement with some of the supplements we talk about, like krill oil or fish oil, you tend to get enough omega-3, but not excessive, and the saturated fat becomes a part of the food there. I recommend getting that test when I work with WellnessFX, one of the online testing companies. That's part of the panel that I get. So I track mine, and I'm always less than 2. If you eat a ton of nuts, you're likely to change that ratio. You might be up to 4 or 6 or 10 to 1. And this is one of the reasons that nuts are a good snack. But if you want to make a meal of nuts, like I did when I was a raw vegan, those amazing like dishes of cashews and avocados that are soaked and blended and everything else, taste really good, but the fatty acid content wasn't quite right. So
some great questions in, Dave, from all our internet audience. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing, and keep them coming. I think we'll talk about bulletproof coffee later on. I know we're getting a lot of questions about that. But on this particular subject, Rolling Kidney Stones is asking, the proteins flow chart is very meat heavy. Any recommendations for vegetarians?
Eat meat. I don't actually say that lightly. I've been a vegetarian, I've been a raw vegan, but there's 2 reasons that you might want to be a vegetarian. One of them is that you care about animal suffering. So if you're concerned about animal suffering, think about the world as a system. So you're going to eat, let's say, one of those tofurkeys made out of tofu. So let's look at where the tofu in that came from. Well, it came from soybeans. Where'd they come from? They came from a soybean crop. How many animals were killed to make that field? A lot. And then, now, how did we harvest the soy? Did a tractor go through and chop up the turtles and the bunnies and the grasshoppers and the worms? And did we put monoculture in and destroy the soil in that region by over-farming it to make soybeans? The deaths per tofu burger are shocking and astounding, and actually, if you're a Buddhist, particularly traumatic. But if you eat a pound of grass-fed cow every single day, you'll kill 0.7 animals a year, including the entire supply chain for your food. Unless your cow stepped on a frog one morning, your cow didn't kill anyone. And there's a great TED Talk on this. You don't have healthy soil unless you have large-hooved animals plowing up the soil. This is why in the U.S. we had millions of buffaloes. When we shot all the buffaloes, we had the Dust Bowl. We didn't know this until relatively recently. When you take away the big-hooved animals, the algae in the soil forms a crust, and then water comes down and it doesn't penetrate the algae, so the water runs off, and you get desertification, which is a huge problem in the U.S. So what do? We replace the deserts with soybean farms. But if you would like to support both less animal death and healthier soil, choosing a vegetarian, plant-based protein lifestyle isn't the right environmental choice or the right animal suffering choice for you. One of the reasons that I've thought so much about this is that when I spent time in Tibet, going to Mount Kailash, I spent 10 days at a Buddhist monastery, and they had a no-killing rule, and so I honored that, and I was vegetarian for that time. And then I went to this amazing monastery, like carved in the side of a big cliff, and there on a flagpole was a yak skin. And so I asked the head lama, the guy, I said, "You're a hypocrite. You say no killing, and you have animal skins up here. What did you do with the animal?" He said, "Oh, we ate it." And I said, "No killing? Like, seriously?" And he just laughed. He literally laughed. And he said, "One death feeds everyone." And that changed my way of thinking about this. So I would really encourage you to think about that as a member of society and as someone on planet Earth. If you're vegetarian to save animals, eating more vegetables will not save animals. When you make those vegetables, you're displacing animals, and when you harvest those vegetables, you're actively killing animals, and you're depleting the quality of the soil here. If we are going to live on this earth in balance with the environment, and I don't mean like the hippie kind of balance, I mean like the math kind of balance. What we're talking about there is consuming some meat from healthy animals that lived near your home, which is why the vast majority of the meat that I eat when I'm home was grown within 5 miles of my house. I know the people who grew it, I know what the animals ate, and they're in my freezer, and they're delicious. And no other animals died in the preparation of my food. So that's one of kind of the long answer to a question, but think about these things, it matters.
So Dave, excuse me, thank you. There is a lot of great discussions going on in the chat room.
I didn't make a few people angry, did I?
But people are interested in, if you could say again, what that TED Talk was, or what people should search for to find that one.
I am forgetting the guy's name right now, but he talks about elephants. If you do a TED Talk for elephants, soil, desertification, I'm certain you'll find it.
Okay.
And this is one of the more disturbing TED Talks I've ever heard, to be honest, because the guy starts out saying in the 70s, we were trying to preserve the land, so we killed tens of thousands of elephants in Africa to make sure that they wouldn't overgraze, and then it turned into a desert because we got rid of the animals that were destroying, or not destroying, but were pawing up the soil. So we just didn't understand the system of an ecosystem. And right now, we're understanding the impact that farming is having on animals and on us. And so we need some farming, and we need some animals, and we need to be rotating the animals and the farms back and forth so that the soil will not die. When the soil dies, we will die.
Regarding proteins. This is an interesting one regarding the omega-6 that we were discussing just now. AJ Noel is asking, in regard to the omega-6, does this also apply to primrose oil supplements for hormone balance in women?
If primrose oil works for you, then go ahead and go with it. The N=1 experiment is very important. You take small amounts of primrose oil, and it's generally packaged appropriately away from oxygen. So it's not my first go-to oil. I would look at krill oil for hormone balancing in women, but if primrose oil is the one that works for you because of the GLA in it, there's nothing wrong with using it. It's just not the first place to go.
Is there another continuum for grass-fed beef? Basically, like, when you go to Whole Foods, there's like step 1 through 5, and there's like some that are pasture, some that are corn, some whatever. And why does corn-fed beef taste so good?
There is a continuum. You want grass-fed and grass-finished beef. It takes 30 days of feeding a grass-fed cow corn before it becomes a corn-fed cow. At the end of 30 days, the fatty acid in its tissues are very different. The reason corn-fed beef tastes good is that the tissue gets marbled with fat. Essentially, you're making the cow diabetic. And that nice fat marbling tastes good because fat tastes good. Your body, like the automatic systems in your body, are craving fat. And the more fat you put in your diet, like with bulletproof coffee and things like that, the less you'll crave that. And I can tell you, I don't like the taste of corn-fed meat at all. I used to just love it. The fat in it doesn't taste good because my body's trained to eat good quality fats. And since there isn't a starvation of fat in my body, I'm picky about my fats. Like, it better be a really good fat if I'm going to eat it. Otherwise, I will naturally, as an animal, pass on it. The same way that you can take 2 different piles of food and animals will naturally select the best pile of food if they're well fed. So this is an example. It's just your body's craving fat. That's why you want corn-fed. But when you've had enough fat, you don't want the corn-fed anymore. You want the grass-fed. The other question, before we move on and get into the guts of the bulletproof diet, is why is cheese over here? This makes me sad. You guys feel kind of sad that the cheese is over there? Here's why. When you make cheese, you take milk from a cow. The protein in milk, the casein, will get about 60% of the toxins from the cow's diet go into the casein directly. So it's a way of concentrating a lot of what the cow ate. So you're getting some protein, but the protein in there, casein itself, In many people, when it degrades in the gut, it goes to casomorphin. It's related to like a gluteomorphin, and yes, it sounds like morphine because it's an opiate. So when it's incompletely digested in the gut, it has an opiate-like effect, which is one reason we like cheese so much. So it's kind of the same thing as our friends who maybe are taking opiates. So cheese causes enormous food cravings. When you eat cheese, your body says, wow, I got some protein, I got some fat, and that's why you like the cheese. It's got that fat in there, it's creamy and it's delicious. But what made the cheese? What made the cheese was you set it here and you let it basically start to spoil, and that's the process of cheese making. What happens is this fungus that's on the cheese, or this bacteria, depending on the kind of cheese, says, this is my cheese. And then it basically says, let me show you it's my cheese, and it puts out toxins to kill the other stuff. And the other stuff says, no, this is my cheese. And it puts out toxins to kill the other stuff. So there's basically like a little battle going on for domination of the cheese. And what makes the flavor in the cheese is what's left after the sort of the fight between these two things. And for us, antibiotics come from molds. But molds generate chemical defense systems to mark their food as their food and to prevent competition. This is natural selection at work here. When you eat that, your liver then gets all that stuff and does something with it. Few people know that there's a toxin that's been identified and quantified called roqueforticin because it comes in Roquefort cheese. Some people can eat some cheeses with zero food cravings, zero brain fog, zero sagging of their skin. But for most cheese, for most people, it greatly increases food cravings. It makes people more tired, it makes them cranky, it makes them less focused, and it makes them inflamed. So you owe it to yourself to try eliminating cheese. If you are going to eat cheese, eating cheese, and I don't have it on here, but you could try a raw goat cheese. Goat cheese tends to be less of a problem. So feta that's been less fermented, I guess that's the wrong word for it, less cured maybe, would be a good way to go, and see how you do, and don't mess around with cheap cheese. It's not worth it. You know, the stuff from Costco is probably not good. Sorry, what?
What about the hard cheeses like Parmesans and same thing?
Those ones are actually worse.
Even worse.
Yeah. They taste good though.
Is it safe to say if there was a bulletproof cheese, like it'd be on there?
Yeah.
You've explored it?
In exhaustive detail. I would really like there to be one. And there's a couple recipes. I want to say I have it on the blog. You can do something that's like a nacho cheese sauce. The trick there is a little bit of salad onion and a little bit of apple cider vinegar and a lot of butter and a little bit of steamed carrot. If you blend that together and you play with the ratios of things, you can get a very passable, like you could even put it on top of a vegetarian style pizza and then put bacon on top of that to make it healthy.
Somebody was asking in particular about that nacho cheese recipe yesterday.
Oh, were they? Okay. That was it. I don't remember the ratios, but it depends on the size of your carrots and how steamed they were. Getting the consistency right is always a challenge. And the trick, by the way, for the cheese is MCT oil. I forgot about that. To get the consistency right, to make it spreadable, just butter doesn't quite do it. There's very amazing stuff that happens when you add an oil like this that's a nice kind of penetrating, like it goes into even your skin really nicely, but when you put it into a blender, it makes things really, really creamy to get that like nacho cheese kind of thing. We have one more question, then I want to go into the science here.
Okay, just to say that I tried to get some ice cream in Mexico, but I didn't have MCT oil, and it was terrible.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so just as that feedback, when you say that the consistency is important, I think it's also for the taste as well, because I know that you made it with the MCT oil, and it was great.
For ice cream making, it's an unfair advantage to use MCT oil when you're making your own stuff, because I must have made 1,000 homemade ice cream bowls in the course of getting my wife pregnant. And we'll explain why that makes sense later, but the right ice cream can definitely increase fertility. And to understand how to get like the Ben & Jerry's like creamy, scoopable consistency versus rock hard, like chip it out of the freezer sort of thing, was not easy to do, and this is the cheat. It totally works.
Yes or no, I guess, since we're on dairy products. JEC is asking, is yogurt the same? Greek yogurt, fat or without fat, same problems?
Don't eat yogurt without fat. Just doesn't make sense. In order for your body to use protein, you need to have either sugar or fat to really, for your liver to metabolize it properly. So zero-fat yogurt, it should be banned as not safe for human consumption. There we go, I said it. But if you're going to eat a fermented dairy product, yogurt, or better yet, kefir would be the right way to go. A lot of people can tolerate a raw milk kefir who don't even tolerate yogurt, but I would not target yogurt as an anti-inflammatory thing you're going to do most of the time. And yogurt, particularly, if you look at my most recent posts about yogurt and probiotics and what happens in the gut, the type of bacteria found in yogurt, which are called firmicutes, are found more heavily in people who are overweight versus other ones called bacteroides that are not found in yogurt. So yes, yogurt has bacteria in it that are found in the human gut, but they're not the only bacteria that you might want to consider putting into your gut. The Bulletproof Diet had several goals. We talked about these a little bit. Number one is massive resilience. I want to be able to do what I want to do. Speaking of massive resilience, I'm doing pretty well today. I got 4.5 hours of sleep last night at a hotel, interrupted by 2 fire alarms, which is a lovely way to wake up. And the night before, 2.5 hours of sleep, and I've been traveling for the last, 5 days. I'm doing really, really well, and I'm actually happy and excited to be here. Part of that is that I have resilience here. I would have been a zombie for a week if I tried this when I was in my mid-20s. I wanted the highest cognitive performance I could engineer out of a diet. I don't want to think about regulating my weight. Don't want to get old and die quickly. And as we mentioned on the first day, fertility is a marker of my longevity, and your longevity matters. The first reason it works, the Bulletproof Diet tastes good. We mentioned willpower is a finite resource. If you eat a diet that doesn't taste good, you will not stick to it. So the idea of eating a bowl of grape nuts with skim milk every morning, even though you'll need to eat a lot of grape nuts every 2 hours to stay full, you're not going to get what you should be getting out of that. You're not going to stick to it long term. That's why denial doesn't work. It's easier, it's less work to eat stuff that tastes good and is satisfying. A creamy cup of Bulletproof coffee makes you go, mmm. In fact, this week, I got a chance to hang out with a friend who's 6 months pregnant. She had eaten 0 red meat and very little butter for the first 6 months. And when you're pregnant, your body needs those as building blocks. So I took her and her husband out for dinner, and I said, no, let's get you the grass-fed steak, and put a huge hunk of grass-fed butter on top of it. And she made sounds when she was eating. And if you've been around pregnant women before, when they get food they need for their baby, it's like watching someone in prison eat. And she was going, like literally making those kinds of sounds when she ate, and just raving about how she was as happy as she'd been in months because she got access to the kinds of things like this. And eating good stuff is just easier. So you should feel like that. You should almost have a food high when you eat really good food. Expect that from every meal, and you'll perform better. Cravings destroy good eating. If you eat things that cause cravings, you'll eat bad things, which cause more cravings. It creates a slippery slope. We've got to fix that. Satisfaction matters. And when you eat good stuff, you feel good and you kick more ass. It's really straightforward. There's this thing about hunger. When you're hungry, I don't mean when there's no food in your body. I mean when you're hungry, which is in itself like a food craving. You don't think very well because you start spending all of your energy thinking about food. And you go, I don't want to think about food. I want to do this. Food, this. And the task switching back and forth kills you. Eating some protein destroys hunger. By the way, those numbers, there's references that back all this up. And these references are going into the new Bulletproof Diet book. If you eat a lot of healthy fat, you won't have cravings. High nutrient density, a lot of nutrients. You eat a ton of vegetables. We're talking 11 servings of vegetables a day. That means you won't be craving vitamins that you're not getting or minerals you're not getting. And regulating hunger hormones, it should say, works. So you need to be able to regulate your hunger hormones. Then there's leptin. When you eat protein in the morning, you can reset your leptin. Once you're on the Bulletproof Diet for a while, you'll tend to reset your leptin anyway. Leptin is essentially a hunger hormone. If you're starting out and you're significantly overweight, you might need to include protein in your bulletproof coffee in the morning. And even if you're at normal weight, you may find you feel better if you have protein in some mornings, particularly for women. This is a difference between women and men. Women who do just intermittent fasting for long periods of time tend to have monthly hormonal irregularities, and it creates adrenal stress. Bulletproof intermittent fasting some days, we'll talk about exactly how to do the fasting coming up here. Some days is fine, every day is probably not a good idea. So what you do on the days when you're not going to do that and you're lazy, at least like me, is you make the bulletproof coffee and then you add some upgraded collagen to it because it has very little flavor, it goes in, and it doesn't even require significant digestion because it's pre-digested by enzymes. So this morning, I put about 20 grams of upgraded collagen in my coffee because I probably won't have any protein at lunch, so my brain will be extra sharp when I'm speaking this afternoon. When you're leptin resistant, you get fat. This is one of the primary reasons people get fat. And when you're leptin sensitive, it means your body can respond to this hormone that's naturally produced when you eat fat and protein, is that you'll be lean and you'll have energy. And this is critical. Insulin resistance is the path to type 2 diabetes. But before you get insulin resistant, you get leptin resistant. So by eating according to the roadmap of the bulletproof diet and controlling the amount of carbohydrate you take in, you can prevent yourself from getting leptin resistant, so you prevent insulin resistance, so you prevent type 2 diabetes from coming later in life. And if you're eating fructose, which we control on the diet, fructose raises triglycerides. When triglycerides go up, then you ruin your leptin sensitivity. This is a reason that having a big bowl of fruit for breakfast is just a bad idea. This is why high fructose corn syrup in your soda is a bad idea, because of this pathway right here. Also, there's 2 studies showing processed foods and sugary foods cause leptin resistance as well. How many of you have heard of VIP? Vasoactive intestinal peptide or polypeptide? One of you, woohoo! I was trying to figure out if we had any real geeks in the audience. Very, very few people have paid attention to this, but it's one of the things that regulates gut function. And this thing controls the state of your brain, how well you sleep, how well your gut functions, and the state of your metabolism. Interestingly, at the beginning of our class, 2 of you said that you'd had significant problems with toxic molds in your environment that affected your health, right? 28% of people have a genetic profile that makes them susceptible to those. If I count the number of people in here, that's funny. 25% of you have had mold issues. This follows exactly what I'd expect. And for the people listening, we did not stack the audience that way. I had no idea anyone had any experience with living in a house that had a problem with toxic mold. So VIP is one of the first things that toxic mold breaks in a quarter of people who are listening to this today. VIP modulates inflammation in your body. If you have VIP problems, which come from eating and breathing things with toxic mold in them, if you're 1 in 4 people, then you will have inflammation that is unchecked in your body. Oh, by the way, if your VIP breaks, your leptin breaks, you get fat. Then the leptin breaks, it's a whole cascade, it's a chain that happens. So the Bulletproof Diet book is going to explain, hey, this is how the pathways work. It'll do it in regular language and say you can worry about the pathways, or you can spend your time looking at the roadmap, figuring out what the best path down the roadmap is for you, and you have a little kryptonite detector on your iPhone along the way. There's a study out there that says stress, emotional stress, or physical, biological stress from what's in your environment affects the function of this polypeptide. And here's the thing. Control your stress levels with toys, or breathing, or sleeping, or yoga, or meditation, or whatever does it for you, and avoid the toxins, and you can get healthy VIP levels, which lead to healthy leptin, which lead to not getting insulin resistance, which leads to less inflammation, which leads to kicking more ass. This wrapped, it wasn't supposed to. Autophagy is something that cleans your cells. This is another reason the Bulletproof Diet works. Cells build up something called lipofuscin. This is an aging thing that happens, and a lot of the anti-aging attempts are how do we get rid of this gunk in the cells? There's a very, very easy way to do that. You want to do it because it accelerates aging. So with autophagy, you get rid of the gunk. You can do this while maintaining your muscle mass. Most of the time, we used to believe you had to remove the cells. You had to basically shrink in order to get rid of the stuff. And when you do it, you reduce the effects of aging. Before we go to lunch today, or I'll say within the next 2 hours, we are going to talk about a way of timing your intake of protein. We call it bulletproof protein fasting, where 1 day a week you change what you eat relatively radically. You don't have to do it every week, but when you do, it literally helps your cells clean themselves out, but you don't have to be hungry and have cravings and be tired when you do it. It's one of the reasons that a lot of societies have supported fasting, because fasting for a day or 2 days, or for a lot of days, will cause autophagy. But this is a problem because most of us aren't willing to fast for a day or two. The things that cause autophagy. Ketones. Ketones happen when your body goes into fat burning mode, which means you ate very few carbohydrates, or upgraded MCT oil and upgraded brain octane both directly go to ketones in the body. That's how they're broken down. So you can raise ketones, which seems like it might be a good idea to help your cells stay clean. Bulletproof intermittent fasting, which we'll also talk about in more detail, how to implement that. Protein restriction, we'll talk about how to do that. And exercise. So the things that are good for you, we take advantage of these in order to let your cells clean themselves out. This is the I don't want to get old and die part of the bulletproof diet. And there's bile turnover. This is actually a picture of a liver. Bile is an interesting substance. We all know it's something to do with digestion, and it's not a very nice thing, and it's green, maybe you know that if you remember that. But bile's job in the liver is to help you digest fat and to some extent protein. But there are studies that show bile also is one of the primary toxin removal routes in the body. Bile is also a signaling molecule, which is also not commonly known even in medical circles. So bile communicates with your body that, oh, I got fed fat, I didn't get fed fat. And if you recirculate your bile, which a lot of us evolved to do, that means the toxins in the bile get recirculated as well. This is good though, because bile is biologically very expensive for your body to make. It also means that if you don't have bile, say you've had your gallbladder removed and you can't store it, you're not going to be able to absorb vitamin A and vitamin D and vitamin E. So bile has a lot of uses. And when you don't have bile, you build up toxins. When you eat a high-fat diet, it increases bile turnover. This is the amount of bile that your body makes and the amount of bile that your body excretes. So if you've ever looked at the oil stick in your car, eventually stuff builds up in the oil and you need to change the oil. By eating a higher fat diet like this, it causes your body to excrete more bile, which carries toxins out of the body with it, and it's actually good for you to have high bile turnover versus less. This is particularly important if you tend to have lots of inflammation, you've been significantly overweight. There's even a study, I kind of like studies, number 17 here, that shows a high fat in combination with a low toxin diet gives you the turnover. The toxins specifically are mycotoxins, biogenic amines, things like histamine, and PCA, which comes from cooking. Next up, we get to talk about inflammation. The reason I chose this as a picture from inflammation, aside from the fact that it was Creative Commons and I was allowed to do it, one of the interesting things that I noticed in my path of being a biohacker, I've had unchecked inflammation for a lot of my life. And I noticed one of the first places I feel it is in my toes. I've always gotten blisters, terrible blisters on my feet when I would walk. And one day, when I was going to business school, I would walk the same quarter mile and I'd get no blisters. And then the next day I walked the same quarter mile and I would get blisters. And something occurred to me, wait a minute, same shoes, same walk, 2 different days. Why were there blisters one day versus not another day? Same socks too. What it was what I ate the night before. I had eaten something that triggered inflammation in my body. Inflammation then caused me to form blisters quickly. So you can track your own inflammation. If you tend to have problems with your feet or any other part of the body like that, if the same stimulus causes different things on different days, pay attention to that.
David, there's lots of questions coming in about bile and about some other health-related issues.
All right, let's do it.
M. Walton DD is asking, what if you have bile stones? Does that affect your metabolism of vitamins and fats? And I think we have some questions from the audience too, but how about that one?
If you have bile stones or gallstones, it definitely affects how you're going to be able to digest fat. You have ducts in the liver, and when they get clogged, it's harder to do that. It's also painful. There are supplements out there that you can take that help to break those up. There are, it's certainly something you see your doctor about if you have stones in your liver, though. The causes of stones are highly debatable, and we'll just say that when you look around online, there's a lot of information that doesn't agree with some of the traditional approaches to treating them. And potentially you want to try fasting, you want to experiment with what's going to work there, but that's a situation where you should see a doctor because, I mean, you could need surgery, who knows. But I would try and soften the stones before I would go into surgery.
Mark?
Dave, I have a relevant story that is just that right there. This happened about last week. So I've had this thing for like 5 years where, you know, my right ankle and foot would get kind of swollen. For me, I thought I usually wear like compression underwear, and I've read something that can affect lymph drainage and whatnot. So I kind of wrote it off as that. Been doing the bulletproof diet, very strict since like June 1st. And last week, someone made a very, very delicious smelling pasta dish at the fire station, and I was like overdue for a refeed, so I'm like, I had a cup of orzo pasta. I didn't think much of it. The next day, I didn't realize this until the next day. My right ankle swelled up, and then I realized that this hasn't happened in 2 months. So I'm like, well, it has something to do with the gluten, obviously. Probably maybe just that, but like same exact thing. Like it was crazy.
Yeah, you turned inflammation back on. Your body was healing that thing, and that's your weak spot.
Yeah.
It sounds a little crazy, but I hear this from people, and in my own life, I've lost track of the number of things like that where I thought it was normal, I thought it was something, but it's really my body's response to something else. So becoming aware of those things, instead of saying, oh, it hurts, keep asking why, because the reason you think something like that's happening probably isn't why you think it is.
Dave, since we're on liver, I have a high enzyme count in my liver, inflammation essentially. And so the oils, I suggest, isn't that a problem for liver? High fat diet for people with liver problems?
It depends on the kind of fat.
So omega-6 is probably not a good idea.
Omega-6s are a bad idea. Also, protein puts a big load on the liver. So if I had high liver enzymes, I would practice intermittent fasting.
Ooh.
Because that lets the liver, quote, take a break, which is a really good idea. And then you'd want to support the liver in its detoxification pathways. The liver relies on glutathione as its primary detoxification mechanism. When you take Tylenol, it really reduces the amount of glutathione in the liver. When you drink alcohol, it really reduces the level of glutathione. In fact, if you drink so much that your manufacture of glutathione in the liver stops, or in other words, you can't make as much as you're consuming, you start getting liver damage from what you're drinking. One way to help yourself make more glutathione is to just take vitamin C. It's one of the two main building blocks for glutathione, vitamin C plus N-acetylcysteine, an amino acid.
And your product,
my glutathione? So if we're talking about a medical condition, my products don't do anything for medical conditions,
okay.
But my products do boost levels of glutathione in the body.
Okay. Good answer.
Would egg yolks be a good way to boost bile?
Yes.
Yeah, because I say that because I had really bad digestion for a few days, and I'm taking cholestyramine, which pulls bile out of your body, and it's actually been going on for a week, and I didn't know. And I've missed my eggs because I've been traveling. Normally I have 6 egg yolks. Last night I just put 6 eggs, and literally half an hour later it was gone. So I was wondering about that.
They're definitely going to stimulate bile production. If you're dealing with bile or digestion issues, taking a digestive supplement with something called ox bile in it is a really, really good idea. If you're on a detox regimen or you're having a hard time adjusting to a higher fat diet, one thing that happens on the bulletproof diet, or even if people just go to paleo, For the first 6 weeks, if you've been a vegetarian or you're on a low-fat diet, your body, your pancreas, is designed to make enzymes, and it'll make enzymes that digest sugar, that digest protein. And if you've been on a fat-deficient diet, your pancreas is optimized to get as much nutrition as you can out of food that's deficient in fat. It takes about 6 weeks for the pancreas to change gears and say, all right, I'm going to make more lipase. I'm going to help you digest fat. It may also take you months to make enough hydrochloric acid in your stomach, especially if you've been on proton pump inhibitors, anything that lowers stomach acid. So this is another thing that people find when they get off of gluten, they get off the toxins, they tend to get less heartburn. But if you're still having a hard time digesting fat, then what you do is you take digestive enzymes with ox bile, and you take betaine HCl, which is literally a capsule full of hydrochloric acid, the stuff your stomach should be making. As we get older, our HCl production goes down, and our ability to digest foods and get the most out of them goes away. I take betaine HCl with all of my fat-containing meals because, as far as I can tell, I stopped making hydrochloric acid years ago when I was obese, and I make very little on my own. So when I take it, I digest my food better and I feel better. When I don't take it, I don't digest as well.
Well, thanks for the questions, but I know we've got an awful lot that Dave wants to get through this morning. We're running a little bit behind time, so Dave, let's move on. But thanks, guys. Keep the questions coming online. We'll be putting them to Dave later in the show, but let's move on.
Okay. Bulletproof diet is designed to cause or to prevent chronic inflammation. There are studies show stress causes inflammation, by the way. A low-fat diet causes stress. Gut pathogens also can be a problem, and by eating less starch and especially less gluten, you make it harder for gut pathogens to survive. Food toxins cause chronic inflammation. We have studies here. Toxins in the environment, there's lots of studies there. And being fat causes inflammation, just the presence of fat in your body. So we want to get rid of these things. And it turns out lectins, which are in wheat, which are in the nightshade family, can lead to damaged gut and food allergies. Phytates, things present in soy and a lot of the avoid types of seeds and grains, they're gluten, mold toxins. So this is why those recommendations are in place that say these ones are more red foods, these ones are more green foods. Here's the interesting thing. Some toxins help your liver be stronger. So it's not that you should never eat any toxins, but I can tell you eating mycotoxins or mold toxins on a regular basis is not going to help the liver be stronger. In fact, vegetable defense systems make your liver stronger because some of the vegetable defense systems are antioxidants and phytonutrients. So the reason that there is, say, a high phenol count in coffee is that coffee makes that to protect itself from predation. And the fact that we're trying to target phenols and polyphenols as part of our nutritional intake is a pretty neat system there. So it's not that every vegetable defense system is bad for you, it's that some of the ways vegetables defend themselves are bad for us and some of them are good for us, which is why the vegetables are placed where they are on the spectrum. We talked about cooking. This looks good. I'm already hungry. But there's more studies here. Open flame does create toxins. Meat over 300 degrees, grilling, by the way, I use 350 because not that much comes at 350, but 500 degrees really does create a lot of toxins. Grilling makes, I'm not even going to spell out all these things in the interest of time, but what I will tell you is that there are studies for each of these, so the recommendations for cooking come from this, and cook your food less and gently and you'll be happier. You'll also, like I said, overcook your bacon and see how you feel. Your ankle will hurt the next morning. It's just how the body is. I don't like it this way. It just is. I'm watching the time. We are getting there. We have about 15 minutes. Cool. Biogenic amines. Histamine is the most famous one. Antihistamines when you have allergies. Histamines form in foods. They also are neurotransmitters. They're stimulatory. They make you cranky and stimulated and agitated, but you need some. They affect your gut function, your metabolism. They're a primary thing that makes your body go and not go. This is why Benadryl is such a powerful thing. They cause headaches, nausea, allergies. Interesting, when there's protein in food and the food ferments, these will form. And sauerkraut is a reasonable source of histamine, which is why fermented vegetables, I'm not opposed to them, I think they can be amazing and healing, but if you don't know what fermented your vegetables, it's not a good idea. The number one highest source of histamine in food comes from Asian-style fish sauce, which is fermented fish. Number two comes from fermented soy. So if you have allergies and you're eating lots of fermented soy, you might want to reconsider that decision and replace it with unfermented grass-fed beef. Frequent ketosis does lots of good things. 0 to 75 grams of carbs a day. And there's all sorts of interesting things that ketosis does around neurological disease. Oh my goodness. When you're in ketosis, you have more blood in your brain. When there's more blood in your brain, there's more oxygen in your brain, more metabolic activity, and there's more waste being carried away. That's awesome. You get better neurotransmitter levels. Your heart actually likes ketones more than it likes glucose from sugar. So this whole not dying thing, being in ketosis frequently but not all the time, appears to be a very good strategy. And when you do intermittent ketosis, sometimes I'm in fat burning mode, sometimes not, then you get better performance. We've already talked about fructose, and I'm watching the clock, so I'm going to go pretty fast on this one. Fructose goes to the liver instead of to be used as fuel, like MCT oil goes to be used as fuel without having to go through the liver. Glucose can be used as fuel, but not fructose, which is a sugar like glucose, except it has to be processed. Your triglycerides, and get this, your uric acid, the thing that causes gout, fruit is correlated with gout, so is beer. The finger's always pointed at red meat, which has some things like purines in it that contribute to gout, but uric acid is a primary thing to pay attention to. You should be having no high fructose corn syrup, and you should be having very little fruit and lots of vegetables if you have gout. Fructose makes advanced glycation end products, which are things where sugar binds to protein, which causes aging in your tissues. It links to your collagen, the collagen that you're eating as a food source, and you're trying to have smooth, healthy skin, which is made of collagen, and plump lips made out of collagen. Well, sorry, fructose didn't help you. LDL cholesterol is not a big deal unless it's oxidized. What oxidizes LDL cholesterol? Fructose. Not the only thing it does, but it does. This is why fruits that are high in fructose are lower on the bulletproof diet. There's good science behind this. Supporting healthy gut flora, there's a lot of bacteria in your gut. They regulate the amount of energy in your body. Bacteria in your gut control your mood. This is why when you eat something, say, with sucralose, the artificial sweetener that affects the bacteria in your gut, it can affect your mood. You can have inflammation caused directly by what's in your gut. And remember that leptin slide where we talked about how leptin is one of the core hormones here? The wrong bacteria growing in your gut can give you leptin resistance, which gives you insulin resistance, which leads to type 2 diabetes. So you want to be nice to these guys in your gut, which is one of the reasons you eat organic, because pesticides and GMO foods change the bacteria in your gut. Micronutrients. This is my daughter Anna. She asked Santa for a stick of butter for Christmas that she could have all for herself. This is her Christmas butter. This is a PubMed published study where they looked at diets in the West, and they said to meet the U.S. recommended daily allowance of all the vitamins and minerals, using 4 different common diets, you would need to eat 27,000 calories a day. It was Jason and Mira Calton from Rich Food, Poor Food, and their latest book is worth buying if you haven't seen it. It's like a grocery positioning system book. They cited the study, which is how I found it. But yeah, 27,000 calories a day. That's a lot. So if you think you're getting your micronutrients just from your food, you better be eating a little bit more. And if you're vegetarian, you're going to need even more than that. So there are parts of your system that are malnourished right now. So you need to take care of that. And nutrient-dense foods, make them correctly so you don't remove foods as you're cooking it, and avoid toxins. End of the day, try this. Getting clean so you can feel dirty. Once you are eating a clean diet like this, where you actually understand how your brain feels, how your body feels, how the chronic aches and pains go away, then you can start finding your kryptonite. You can use the iPhone app, the Food Sense application, or you literally can just look at, how do I feel today? And ask yourself that. And then you just keep doing this. But until you've felt the clean state where you can think and feel and your body moves the way you want it to move, it's very hard to go, wow, I was there and now I'm not there. Because most of us are doing 20 things that keep us out of that state. So try and, for just 2 weeks, try it and you'll feel different. When you have this self-awareness, you realize that you can control your environment to control yourself. And that's what we're talking about. So we already talked about the things you get from this, and I'm going to go really fast. Don't forget the compass. It's free. When you get really clean, you can just rely on how you feel, or you can quantify and measure with the flash on your camera to tell you, I ate something in this meal that's probably going to cause inflammation. Just search for Bulletproof Food Sense on the iPhone store. Here we go. I'm going to talk about timing, and our timing is perfect, actually, to make sure we get to the break on time, because we are going to be making some lamb in about 5 minutes. Here's the basic Bulletproof diet. Here's when to eat. You want to eat this diet if you want to maintain your body fat levels or just slowly lose weight at a natural rate. Slow being relative speaking, because you'll still lose at least a couple pounds a week if you have weight to lose on this diet. You want good mental performance, and it's generally a low-carb diet, but you can eat some carbs in the evenings. Here's the timing. You can drink Bulletproof coffee in the morning. If you're going to have sugar and starch, you eat it in the evening. You can eat meat all day, you can eat fat all day, eat vegetables all day. Eat them from the green side of the Bulletproof diet, but you're going to be eating something at some point all the day. But I will tell you, if you take this and say, I'm going to shift it down here, I'm going to have a bunch of fruit for breakfast, it's going to affect those 5 reasons you eat the Bulletproof diet. Bulletproof intermittent fasting means that you're focusing on fat loss and the best mental focus. You want 0 food cravings, and what you're doing here is you're not cutting calories. Cutting calories generally makes you tired because 20-25% of your calories go to fuel your brain. Cut your calories, there's literally less energy left for your brain, and your body will move less. Like when I do this, I'm burning calories. If I didn't have enough food, I would naturally stand like this and not move side to side, because my animal inside is trying to save my energy until more food comes. With intermittent fasting, if I wanted to eat 2,500 calories today, I'm still going to do it. I'm just having it all for dinner, or I'm having a late lunch and a dinner. This isn't about eating less food. The way you do this is Bulletproof coffee in the morning. You can eat fat during the fast. This is a big thing. No one was doing this until Bulletproof intermittent fasting came out. The idea that 0 protein and 0 sugar in the morning gives you a different metabolic effect and allows your cells to clean themselves and all is really important, and it's what gives you lots of energy during a fast. You eat normal foods for lunch and or dinner, and even when you're doing this intermittent fasting, you can have some carbs, just have them later in the day. And finally, Bulletproof protein fasting is a new concept that's coming out in this book. My friend Josh Witten pointed out to me, it's something I've been doing for quite a while, but he pointed out I was still getting too much protein. You need to be pretty radical about it. Less than 15 grams of protein, which means even things like white rice have 1 or 2 grams. So you need to look online and figure out, am I actually getting very little protein? So for 1 day a week, you stop eating any protein. And this really kicks the body into this cellular cleaning process. You end up eating a lot of avocados and coconut milk and things like that, and you can have carbs all day long. So it looks like this. You can still do Bulletproof coffee. You can eat your carbs. You can even have a little fruit for breakfast. Have some salt with it if you do that, and you can eat the rest of these things. When you do it, you can start losing weight. If you've been stuck, and maybe even regular intermittent fasting, even the Bulletproof diet, you've plateaued, it's because you're eating too much protein. It's because you haven't done this. I've seen countless people like on Atkins who get stuck halfway through. They do this, boom, it goes down. If you want to get the rest of these details, and you want to get the first chapter of this book when it comes out, you can register for free at bulletproofdietbook.com. I would appreciate it if you did that, because I want to be able to show the publishers, yeah, look, people are interested in this amazing way to biohack the body. Now, I believe it's time for us to do the lamb.
Yeah, we're going to actually switch now, switch the set, get into some cooking. But anyone from the audience have any questions? The internet chat rooms have been fantastic today. We've got some really great questions and comments coming in. But Mark, what would you like to contribute?
You brought up the, I haven't seen that yet, the protein fasting. And I was hoping you could maybe tell me some more about how protein can affect ketosis, because when I first started experimenting with the ketogenic diet, my carb intake was very, very low, but being the traditional bodybuilder mentality, I was still having my 40 grams of protein after I worked out and having a shake before I went to bed. I was not getting into ketosis, so I read somewhere like have the protein and it worked.
And just before you answer that, to build on that, for people who might be new, can you explain what ketosis and ketogenic diet is
Perfect.
for people? That would be great.
Sure. So ketosis and a ketogenic diet, it's fat burning mode. So your body can burn two fuels. It can burn sugar, or it can burn fat. Your body actually doesn't burn protein. Your body converts protein into sugar in a very metabolically expensive and toxic process, which is why a high protein, low fat diet is a really bad idea for your longevity and your inflammation. Atkins, in my mind, Dr. Atkins, the Atkins diet, which focused on putting you into ketosis, was really ahead of his time. I have a book from 2 years before I was born where he wrote a lot of this stuff, but Dr. Atkins made two big mistakes. Number one, he didn't look at the difference between types of fat. So canola oil, no problem, it's a fat, it's going to do this, and it matters. The other thing is that he was too heavy on the protein, and he wasn't looking at the quality of the protein. So a pork rind, which is completely damaged fats, it's been fried, and completely damaged protein, it's junk food. It's just zero sugar junk food. That's like the perfect Atkins food. It'll put you into ketosis, but it'll also make you inflamed. So I found that when I started doing that stuff 15 years ago, it was the excess protein, and it was, I was pounding the protein too. I've got to do this. It doesn't work, and it's not even good for you. So when you eat super high quality protein, because you're only eating moderate protein on the Bulletproof diet, it just needs to be the right, good quality protein. Don't mess around with cheap protein, because then you won't get the nutrients you need from it. This is why I would only do 2 tablespoons of the whey, not more, and why I would focus on the collagen, and I'd focus on high quality animal protein or eggs, which are really amazing, but not mess around with the other stuff. Do we have time for one more question before we get started on this?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's our lady in the second row here.
Oh yeah. When you say carbs are allowed, what types of carbs? Just in vegetables and fruit, or?
On the Bulletproof diet, we have a whole sort of safe starch infographic. But the short answer there is that sweet potatoes, carrots, butternut squash, and white rice. Some people are sensitive to some of those things. You might want to figure that out. A lot of people, if they're not nightshade sensitive, can tolerate the inside, like the white mushy part of a baked potato. But a lot of people do not do well on potato starch, and there's 20 different things that go wrong with white potatoes that can lead to increased inflammation. I consider them kind of a riskier source of starch. But sweet potatoes are, for most people, their favorite once they try them and learn how to cook them. It's not just for a yam thing you do on Thanksgiving. You can make French fries, at least baked French fries, out of yams that are amazing, or out of sweet potatoes.
I'm sorry. How about how come you don't recommend brown rice? You said white rice.
I recommend brown rice because brown rice has the outer layer in it still, which is where all the naturally occurring anti-nutrients and pesticides are. And brown rice is really hard on the gut. The fiber in it can be damaging to the lining of the gut. This is why throughout societies where rice was a common food source, people who could afford white rice ate white rice, and the people who were desperately poor ate brown rice. It wasn't because the poor people were somehow making a healthier decision. It was because they couldn't afford to get their rice milled. So rice is a source of starch. It's not a source of significant nutrients. The man who told you that brown rice was good for you was alive in the 70s and early 80s, and fiber's good. There's fiber here. Eat it, not knowing that it was wrapped in naturally occurring defense systems that your body's not good at detoxing.
Have you removed brown rice off the Bulletproof diet, because I know it's on the current one?
Yeah, it's swapped, and the 3 diet out of the white rice is ahead of brown rice. And I'm surprised the current one should actually have that swap made. I think I made that swap like a year ago.
The one I have in my cover.
Okay,
it's still on there.
You probably printed one from a year ago, because that swap was like version 1.1 or something.
Is white rice really high glycemic though? Because I've always avoided it because of that.
Are you going to eat it all by itself?
No.
So dip it in butter and then put some egg yolks on it. It won't be that high glycemic.
Okay.
And we had some comments about the white versus brown rice in our chat rooms as well, so thanks for bringing that up. But with all this great food in front of us, I think we need to learn how to make lamb and cumin loaf.
Yes. So cumin's an interesting spice. It has a really a cool feel to it, almost like in the back of your throat. And it's something that if you make guacamole, which I do quite often, try adding just a dash of cumin. It's fresh, good quality cumin, of course, along with oregano to guacamole, and amazing things happen to the flavor there. In this recipe, again, we make a mirepoix, and you can tell I'm a very native French speaker, so I just have no clue how to say that word. No matter how many times I hear it, it doesn't stick in my brain. So if I could say it with a Spanish accent, and then you'd really laugh at me, so you're going to have to let me not be a French-speaking chef. What we do here is we take a leek, and you take the stalk and the leaves, and you chop it pretty small, like this, and you put it into a saucepan. This, again, is our pretend saucepan that you can see into. So pretty straightforward. We have the stalks only of bok choy, also in the saucepan, and 3 carrots, chopped small. Those are very small carrots, you can tell I'm doing a cooking demo. And let's see, we have a way to cook them down over the course of 10 minutes. You can see the beautiful burner right here. And when you do that, these all get really soft, and the flavors all intermingle, and it is really delicious. So you've got no oil in here. It's going to take about 10 minutes until the vegetables just get all tender, and this is about bringing the flavor out so you can do it with the lamb. When this is cooled down a bit, and this is a problem with the loaf, is it takes a little while to cool, but if you have another pan that's either been in the fridge or just a cold plate, there isn't that much here. This is a flavoring you're making with vegetables. So this cooks down to a third of its volume. Dump it onto a cold plate, it cools very quickly. So once that's cooled down, you take the meat, in this case grass-fed ground lamb, and you take 4 egg whites at room temperature, and you mix them together with dried oregano, cumin seeds. You can also use powdered cumin. Here are the seeds for bursts of flavor, and here's the powdered cumin. You put both of those in there. So you get a general background of cumin, and you get this nice occasional burst of flavor from a little seed. A little bit of apple cider vinegar. This adds a bit of a sour note, which is really important to complete a taste profile. It also helps to make the egg yolks firm up a little bit when you mix the egg as the binding agent. So what you've got here is you've got these really nice flavored vegetables that have been cooked down, and you want to get them into the meat. It's the egg that provides the glue that holds it all together. You could almost call this like a meat loaf of sorts. It is a loaf, but we're not using breadcrumbs as a binding agent. We're using eggs and cooked vegetables. You put this mixture, and I'm not going to mix all this up. I was actually going to do it with gloves on, because there's something really viscerally satisfying when you're a cook about making a meatloaf, because you get to like mash everything together. But since I haven't cooked this down, I'm not going to do it. And one trick that I found when making this recipe is parchment paper is really, really nice because it makes cleanup easy. Put that down in the pan before you mix the ingredients and just pat it down into a loaf. You bake it for about 30 or 40 minutes, and what comes out has just this pungent, like beautiful flavor and just a smell that your whole kitchen will smell. And it's not overpowering with the cumin because it has all the vegetable flavor distributed throughout. It's a really nice dish. And if you make it at night for dinner, you can then, the next morning, have it for breakfast if you're not doing just bulletproof intermittent fasting for breakfast. It's even good for lunch the next day. So this is one of those times when you can do a leftover, but I wouldn't save it like some people like to make a week's worth of meals and put them in the bottom of the fridge. You are going to get high histamine and probably some other problems if you do that on a regular basis. Occasionally it doesn't matter. Every day as a practice, not a good idea. That said, that's how we cook this. When you're done, oh, I didn't mention, you can take the rest of the bok choy and you can layer it out like this, but what you get is a very delicious, amazing loaf that is useful for all kinds of things, including you can even make sandwich-like things if you're going to have it for lunch the next day. You can just take a piece of lettuce, put it inside a piece of lettuce, fold it over, and eat it with your hands. This is just a really satisfying dish.
What's the sauce on there?
The sauce on here looks very delicious. I don't know.
Okay.
We'll find out.
All right, gotcha.
Yeah, I was actually wondering that myself because it's not in the recipe and it wouldn't come out of the saucepan, but it looks delicious. One thing I'd caution you about when you're cooking, vinegar is the coolest thing ever. Because if you want to take something out of a blender, any kind of liquid or soup, getting the amount of vinegar right is critical. And as you develop a taste for how a recipe is going to come out, apple cider vinegar is your friend. Balsamic vinegar is not. Balsamic has a really sweet, like intense flavor. I like balsamic. It is also the most toxic of the vinegars. It has the most heavy metals and the most mold toxins in it. So even the super high-end, extra aged by monks in a cave in Europe somewhere, still there are just fundamental problems with the way it's made, and I'm sorry to tell you that. So in order to substitute for that, to have less inflammation, what you do is you take good quality organic apple cider vinegar and you put in a little bit of sweetening flavoring, whatever sweetener you prefer that's not artificial. You could even use honey if you're going to get a small amount. We're talking less than 25 grams of honey. If you need a teaspoon of honey in a recipe, you're not going to die. It's okay. But if you need a cup of honey in your recipe, that's probably not the right choice because you're going to get those advanced glycation end products and oxidized LDL. I oftentimes, if I wanted to sweeten this up a little bit, I would add a tablespoon of xylitol. So when you get the sour-sweet balance right, even in a loaf like this, the flavor really, really pops. So pay attention to that small sour-sweet, and you can change things and stay away from balsamic.
What about stevia? Xylitol.
20% of people think stevia tastes like bitter nastiness.
It does.
I'm one of them. So you don't see a lot of stevia in my recipes.
Okay.
But the new highly purified stevia that's come out doesn't have so much bitter in it. So a little bit of that stuff mixed with other sweeteners like a xylitol can be really, really nice. I would have no problem adding a tiny dash of sweetener to this, like stevia, but I would add it to the egg yolks, so it would be evenly distributed instead of like a...
Concentrated somewhere.
Yeah.
David, and what about freezing meals? You said don't keep them in the fridge, but what if you did meals, vacuum seal them perhaps, and...
That's your best path.
Okay.
You vacuum seal it, put it in the freezer, and then when you take it out, eat it soon after it comes out, you're fine. That's
fine.
the way to do it. And most people are eating sandwiches on a regular basis. You can't freeze a sandwich. It's just not going to end well. But you can freeze a meatloaf, take it out, and throw some lettuce in your lunch and maybe some more butter or something and go.
I've been suffering through eating organ meats because I hear they're kind of superfoods. Are they really, or can I bail on that strategy?
One of the worst experiences of my culinary life was the raw lamb liver smoothie. Do not try that at home. It was disgusting and wrong. So, yeah, I don't like it. If you're going to eat liver, which is incredibly good for you, you want it to be young animal grass-fed liver, soak the liver either in apple cider vinegar or even in milk, and just make sure you rinse it off really well. Soak it for at least like 12 hours. This will get a lot of the blood out of the liver, and that liver flavor goes down enough that it's tolerable to most people. That said, there's two other ways that I get 99% of my liver, including the liver I had this morning. I buy grass-fed desiccated liver tablets or capsules. There's several brands, you just Google for them. And about 6 little capsules equals an ounce of raw grass-fed liver with no flavor. Hooray. When I'm home, especially if I just bought a whole sheep, okay, now I have lamb's liver. If my wife doesn't eat it all, she's from Sweden, and apparently like guts are a major part of the Swedish diet. What I'll do is I'll cut the raw liver up into little, like, maybe half-inch cubes, and I'll freeze them on a little tray. And then you can just pop it in the back of your mouth and take it like a pill, and you don't have to taste it. Because I just don't think I'm ever going to be a liver man. But I'll eat kidneys. Those are pretty good if you slice them up right. I had sweetbreads for dinner last night at the Epic Roast House. They were delicious. So sweetbreads are all right.
If we have time, are we going to get into any point in the class with the sous vide cooking and the flavor wave? I've done a lot of research myself, but flavor wave in particular, I don't know much about it, but I know you talk about it a lot.
I am definitely not going to get into sous vide in this class. We'd have to have a whole cooking class in order to do it. And I love sous vide. In fact, before we knew that Nathan Myhrvold, the CTO of Microsoft, was one of the major guys doing this, back in 2004 or something, I was doing sous vide, and I have a laboratory temperature controller and a sushi rice cooker from a restaurant, actually. That was how I did it. But the direction that molecular gastronomy has gone has been towards one of flavor. So like Nathan's recipe for French fries. You cook them 3 different times in 3 different oils, and they're like the most crispy, delicious, amazing, like orgasmic French fries on earth. I have no doubt about it, because he's the man from a science perspective. But the goal of that style of cooking is flavor at any cost. Carrageenan, no problem. The fact that carrageenan is irritating like gluten to the gut, and it's not something you want to put in your body, it doesn't matter. It makes the fluffiest, best little spice extract, so we'll go with that in that style of cooking. I use the same cooking techniques, but I apply them towards maximizing human performance and health, and I want my food to taste really good and be satisfying. But the end goal is I'm willing to give up 2 flavor points if I get 20 performance points. But the high-end restaurant thing is, you eat it and, oh, the flavor, it's amazing, and the presentation was beautiful, and I admire the heck out of that art form. It's just as a daily practice for me to eat that, I don't perform well when I do it. So that was why I modified using the same techniques, different goal. So sous vide I highly recommend.
We do have so many great questions, and once again, thank you, Internet, for being so many engaged. So I'd love to just get in a couple before we go to break. Okay, from Josh, I have a question about intermittent fasting. I've been following the Bulletproof diet for 3 months now, and I've been doing intermittent fasting every day. Am I doing this right? Is it healthy to do it every day? Or do I need to do anything to reset my intermittent fasting? What are your suggestions for weekend eating?
For weekend eating, you can have, in fact, I recommend 1 day a week with intermittent fasting that you have a high-carb day. Because if you don't go out of ketosis occasionally, it's not good for you. You want to kind of surf that line where I'm fat burning, carbs, fat. Most of the time, the diets that have a cheat day, like I'm a fan of Tim Ferriss. I think his work is really awesome. But on his cheat day, he says, eat chocolate croissants and pizza. Well, unfortunately, the food cravings and food hangover that's going to cause for most people lasts for 4 days. So you'll lose some weight on it, but the clarity that we're seeking isn't always there with something like that. So what I'd recommend is, if you want to have a really luxurious carb refeed day on a weekend, buy some mochi, M-O-C-H-I. It's a Japanese pounded white rice dish. And get out that rusty waffle maker. Put the mochi in the waffle maker. The waffle maker will cook a fluffy piece of mochi into something that looks like a waffle and is crunchy on the outside and chewy on the inside and incredibly delicious when you slam like half a stick of Kerrygold on top of it. There you go, you got your carbs. Stuff like that. You can have waffles for breakfast Saturday morning with a big cup of Bulletproof coffee, and you're getting some carbs. You can also have them for dessert with jam on them or something, or honey. Raw honey is good on them. So it's not like we're really that deprived on this kind of a diet. That's a good way to break it. Also, if you have adrenal exhaustion, you're not getting enough sleep, you're working out all the time, intermittent fasting every day puts a load on your adrenals. Any fat loss other than from nicotine is using adrenaline, using your adrenal hormones to help burn your fat. So if your adrenals are in poor shape, then you want to watch out for any kind of fasting, including Bulletproof intermittent fasting. If you have adrenal issues, maybe only a few, like most people have some adrenal exhaustion going on because of modern life, then you can take adrenal glandular capsules, and you can use other supplements we'll talk about, like adaptogens, in order to make your adrenal glands stronger, which lets you do the intermittent fasting with the results you're looking for. But if you're exhausted and tired and your sleep isn't very good, have some protein in your coffee in the morning. That's okay. Just don't put whey protein in your coffee because it's not heat stable. You'd ruin the 20% of the whey that I make is colostrum. It's designed for stimulating the immune system. You heat that up in your coffee, you just wasted really good protein. Don't do that. Put the collagen in there. That's what it's for.
All right, fantastic. This has been so fun this morning. So much to learn. We're going to take our first 15-minute break of the day. What are we going to do when we come back?
That is a really good question. There's a lot we're going to do when we get back. We're going to start talking about supplements for your body. We talk about maintaining your hardware versus kind of the software up here. So we're going to get your hardware going. We're going to do some more technology demos to show you some of the technology and how it works. And we're going to have Dr. Justin come in, who's going to do some electrical stimulation and not the small stuff, the stuff that you can use to make people fall over. I don't know if he's going to make me fall over, probably one of you, but if we don't hear at least a little bit of swearing and moaning, it's not going to be as good as I think it's going to be.
Wow, okay, that is a tease for sure. Everybody, I just want to read off a couple of comments that are coming through online. M. Taylor says, I got a master's in clinical nutrition, went to med school, and they don't teach 99% of this. Great stuff.
Oh, thank
what
you.
I am personally loving is just that thing, whether you went to med school or not, I know so very little about how my body works. And I don't know, do you guys feel the same way? I see some nodding in here. They don't necessarily teach it to you at school, when we're kids, when we're adults. And that is what I am truly loving about this course, Dave, is finding out the whys behind some of the things that we're told to do. Even the things that you have laid out in the Bulletproof Diet, we're finding out the whys behind it. And that is just really, really important in my mind before I do things and changing my diet or changing my lifestyle. So everybody, if you feel the same way, once again, thank you for being here over the course of these 3 days. If you can't make it all 3 days, if you want to know what the recipes were from yesterday, the conversations about sleep, you can own this course anytime, unlimited access to all the videos for $149. They're $99 when you buy it right now over break. And I again want to point out that this is just 2 of the many, many PDFs that are part of the bonus materials. This one is on the body module, which we're going to be getting to later. But this is just chock full of resources, of a lot of the material that we've been covering that is basically an ebook on the Bulletproof Life, in my opinion, around this course in particular. It is very particular to what we are going through, all these different modules. So that is already up on the site. If you have purchased the course, you can download those already. And if you're making a decision, now would be a great time to do that so that you can have those as your notes. So once again, thank you everybody for joining us and for the fabulous discussions going on in the chat rooms and your questions. And Dave and everyone, we'll see you back in 15 minutes.
Hey everybody, how's it going? I'm Chase Jarvis, co-founder here at Creative Live, and from September 16th to the 21st, we've got an event of a lifetime coming at you. We're calling it Photo Week.
Creative Live Photo Week is a 6-day, all-access pass inside the high-octane world of photography.
Broadcast you live on Creative Live
September 16th through 21st, with 3 broadcast channels
And over 30 world-class instructors.
Whether you're a working photographer
or a hobbyist.
We have workshops for you.
You will learn technical, creative, and marketing skills
From industry leaders in every category.
non-stop photography for the love of photography.
All on Creative Live.
We're unleashing the creative potential of millions of people worldwide like you by connecting them live with the world's most inspiring experts. That's what Photo Week's all about. I'll see you there.
6 days, 3 channels, over 30 instructors. If that isn't a total shebang! Your head's gonna explode.
Rock and roll.
Come on down to Crazy Eddie.
It's going to be
Crazy stupid.
awesome.
Woohoo!
Hi, I'm Alfio Studo, wedding and commercial filmmaker. On September 4th to 6th, I'll be teaching a free course on Creative Live called Visual Storytelling, the Art of Wedding Filmmaking. On day 1, I'll discuss the essentials in building a client base and developing strong relationships with your clients well before the wedding day. I'll go over the essential gear required for wedding cinematography and go in depth with the importance of preparation and pre-planning. On day 2, I'll discuss the specifics of composition, content and lighting as we recreate a wedding scene live in the Creative Live studio. I will show you how to deal with location and lighting limitations as well as talk about client interaction. You'll also learn how to implement shooting techniques that have one purpose, to tell a story. On day 3, I will finish the course with a post-production overview and show you how to continue to tell the story in the editing process and create a finished product that your clients will treasure. This course is free to watch anywhere in the world, live and online. So if you're a wedding photographer or a filmmaker who is interested in learning how to create moving and evocative imagery with video, then join us on September 4th to 6th for Visual Storytelling, the Art of Wedding Filmmaking. Don't miss out. RSVP now, and I hope you can join us.
Hi, I'm Melanie Duncan, and on September 4th, 5th, and 6th, I'm going to be teaching a course called Unlocking the Power of Pinterest, live on Creative Live. I'll see you there. A lot of creative professionals are very good at what they do. What they really struggle with is getting in front of the right audience and the right prospective clients and customers. I'm going to teach you how to use Pinterest to build a massive audience and also to monetize that audience. On day one, I'm going to teach you how to create captivating content on Pinterest and also show you what's working now. On day two, I'm going to teach you how to increase your visibility online and show you step by step how to build a massive Pinterest following. I'm also going to walk you through how to set up a successful Pinterest contest. Finally, on day three, I'm going to walk you through how to market your events, sales, and promotions on Pinterest and teach you how to use your page to build a personal brand. This course is great for anyone who's looking to build a bigger audience and get their products and services in front of more people online. We'll also be talking about how to use a Pinterest account for business strategically. Believe it or not, it's a lot different than how you use your personal account. This course is free to watch anywhere in the world live. So enroll now and we'll see you in September.
Hi, I'm Devin Duncan, and on September 7th, 8th, and 9th on Creative Live, I'll be teaching a class called How to Make Your Website Work For You. Many people have websites that are little more than glorified business cards. This makes it difficult for you to have a real connection with your customers and make money doing what you love. This course is going to change all that. We're going to teach you how to actually be achieving goals, connecting with your customers, and seeing results from your website. On day one, we'll be covering which social media platforms are best for your business and audience. And don't be fooled. You don't need to be using all of them. We'll be covering which strategies to use so you can best achieve your goals. On day two, we'll cover how to build a profitable relationship with your customers and how to develop those relationships almost on autopilot. And finally, on day three, we'll be covering how to sell without being too salesy. I'll be sharing some tips with you that you have to do, but also things that you must avoid. This course is for people that are frustrated with their online presence. Maybe you're not getting the traffic that you want, or the sales you feel you deserve for the work you're putting in. This course will help you solve the frustrations and make your website work for you. This course is 100% free to watch online from anywhere in the world. So enroll now and start taking the steps to make your website work for you. I'll see you in September.
Hi, I'm Tim Groen. On September 9th and 10th, I'll be teaching my class, Sell Your First 1,000 Books, live on Creative Live. See you there. Imagine what it would be like to have direct access to your fan base, so when you started your next book project, you already had people lined up ready to buy it. The problem is that there's just too much advice swirling around out there about Facebook and Twitter and blogging and podcasting and everything else, and there's nothing to really pull it together. So that's the problem I'm going to solve with my course. I'm going to teach you how you can build your platform, connect with readers, and sell more books. On day one, we'll start by looking at the connection system, the online marketing framework that anyone can use to immediately start building their platform. Then we'll move on to permission. And permission is the way that you stay in contact with people in a way that reliably drives action and sales. And then next we'll look at content and how content can be easily produced and how it can drive the rest of your marketing efforts. On day two, we're going to continue with content, and we're going to show you how content drives outreach. And outreach is very simply moving people from not knowing you exist to knowing you exist. And then we'll talk about how permission,
content and outreach all work together in the connection system to build your platform. Then finally, we're going to bring in a special guest, Hugh Howey. He's the best-selling author of Wool and the #1 selling self-published author last year. And he's going to come in and share his insights on what he's done to build his platform. This course is perfect for anyone that's trying to create a book and get it into the hands of people and spread their message. So whether it's a cookbook or a fiction book or a business book or a photography book, this is going to help you move people from not knowing you exist to connecting with them and connecting with them in a way that they're going to support your work. This course is free to watch live anywhere in the world, so enroll now and I'll see you in September.
Hello world, my name is Steve Rennie. I am the Ren Man, and on September 12th I'm going to be teaching Music Business 101 Networking on Creative Live. If you're trying to get a start in the music business, folks, you've probably already figured out that it's all about who you know. Your network is everything. It might seem like an impossible task to get your foot in the door. Getting the right person to take a chance on you isn't easy, but it can be done. My network has helped me go from a kid with a dream at USC to managing one of the biggest rock bands in the world, Incubus. I'm going to help you identify who your targets are, who you should be trying to connect with, and why. We're going to talk about networking tools. What are the right tools to reach your target? I'm going to talk about how you nurture a relationship without being annoying. I'm going to help you create a plan, put together everything you've learned into a personalized, actionable plan for building your own network in the music business. This course is free to watch anywhere in the world, online, live. So enroll now and learn the secret of networking, Red Man style. We'll see you September 12th.
I'm Cameron Argon, commonly known as Big Chocolate, and I'm a music producer. I started producing and making beats and songs and tracks when I was about 16, starting in like Pro Tools and then quickly getting over it and going to Logic, which was more easy for me to understand at 16. I recently switched to Ableton about 5 months ago. When I switched, it was about a 2-3 day thing until I was like, can't go back. I gotta use this. Workflow to me is the most important element in making music. If a track flows right, meaning you sit down and you just keep working continuously, you don't even sit on it or anything, it can be done within a few hours. With Ableton, there's a lot less disconnect from music. The technology wall between you and your ideas is a lot shorter than a lot of the other programs out today. As a producer, Ableton really allows me to get my ideas done efficiently.
Hi, I'm Mike McCallowitz, author of The Pumpkin Plan, and I've teamed up with Creative Live to run a free workshop September 24th, September 25th on how to spark growth in your business. It's time you join me. I know why you started your business. I know what it felt like. You were excited. You were thrilled. You couldn't wait. But today, I suspect it's a little bit different. It's exhausting. You work crazy, relentless hours. If you follow the methods of a colossal pumpkin farmer, you will experience colossal growth yourself. The key's right here in the field. Well, do you know most farmers are ordinary farmers? They try to grow as many pumpkins as possible. But a small faction are colossal farmers. They grow the colossal pumpkin, the one that dwarfs all these pumpkins. It can weigh up to a ton. Well, once you know their secret process for growing a colossal pumpkin, you'll also have the secret for growing a colossal business. On the first day, we're going to take 3 major steps to sparking growth in your business. Step 1 is you're going to identify the elements of your business that facilitate large growth. Step 2, you're going to pick the strongest clients that you have and learn to replicate them, because more great clients means fast growth. And the final thing you're going to do on the first day is the watering process. How do you get in front of the clients and the rest of your business frequently enough that it just grows on its own? On the second day, you're going to learn the secret to the vendor well, perhaps the most important thing you can do to grow your business. Then you're going to learn about pruning, how to get rid of the weak clients, the clients that are actually a distraction to your business. And the final thing, you're going to learn about the seasons of business. Just like the seasons in the farm here, or seasons in your business. If you know how to leverage them, you're going to grow. If you're in business but struggling to grow your business, this class is for you. If you have a retail store, if you're B2B, you own a farm, be here.
I'm Eyal Levy at Audiohammer Studios, and on September 25th, I'll be teaching you digital drums with Easy Drummer at Creative Live. I've been in the music business over 15 years. I've written, produced, engineered, mixed, and played on dozens of albums. And I've toured the world with some of the most amazingly ridiculous musicians. And one thing never, ever changes. It's almost impossible to find a drummer, and a great drummer at that. And while there's no substitute for a great drummer, TuneTrack's Easy Drummer is the next best thing. I'm going to give you the tools to get started with Easy Drummer. Start with the basics, setting up the plugin, how to use it, how to pick sounds from rock, pop, whatever genre, and then I'll show you how to mix it in your DAW. And last but not least, we're going to cover the most important part of the puzzle, which is writing great drum parts. If you're a musician that wants to write and record realistic sounding drums, but you don't have access to a drummer, this course is for you. And if you happen to be a drummer, this course is also for you. It's not always possible to record your ideas, and Easy Drummer is a quick and easy way to sketch them all out to work on later. At the end of this course, you'll be able to create drums that sound like a real drummer played them, and mix them with other instruments. This course is free to watch anywhere in the world live online, so enroll now and learn how to get the most out of Easy Drummer. I'll see you in September.
Who do you want to see next in Creative Live? I'm Craig Swanson, and we want to hear from you. Go to creativelive.com/suggest, where we've created a special forum for you to tell us who you would like to see next in this Creative Live classroom. Creative Live is here to help you unleash your creative potential by bringing you the world's best experts in this unique live worldwide creative classroom, and helping you build a sustainable business and lifestyle around your creative endeavors. We're looking for your suggestions for the best instructors in design, business, filmmaking, photography, audio, and software training. Tell us the name of your dream instructor, what you want them to teach, and if they are already teaching, give us a link to their current workshop or classes. This is your classroom, and we are listening to you.
and welcome back to the Bulletproof Life with Dave Asprey. Dave, take it away.
Thank you very much. These are not my slides.
Okay, we can get that fixed.
Now,
but it's a good slide.
This goldfish is paleo. This goldfish was eating, never mind, I'm not picking on any one style of eating today. Were there some questions we could answer while we work on getting the bulletproof slides up?
How do you feel about wild game?
How do I feel about wild game? I'm a huge fan of eating wild game. It depends on where did it come from, too. Like, there are some parts of Northern California where if you eat boar that's hunted in those regions, you're going to get a ton of toxins because they're literally, like, Silver Creek was called that because it was a mercury mine. So maybe the boar that's been living in Silver Creek might not be the right kind of boar to eat. But unless you have an environmental thing like that, generally wild game is one of the best sources of protein you can get, but there's a problem. Wild game is so lean. And we're talking about where you get your fat. And this is why, you know, the proverbial holy cow, cows make fat that keeps coming out of them in the form of cream and butter. Whereas if you want to go out and shoot an animal, you'll get vanishingly small amounts of fat, like a lean deer. And that's why hunting season, you want to shoot them when they're the fattest to get the fat that allows you to metabolize the protein properly. So watch out for that extra lean venison. You better like soak it in some butter and maybe add some coconut milk on top, and then you're totally golden.
Some good questions actually about toxins from the first session this morning, Dave. And I'm not quite sure I'll get this right, but it's lemonical demon oncle. Hope I got that right.
Say it again.
Lemonical demon oncle, which I think means the one-eyed demon uncle, I think.
I was just going to say, it sounds to me like like a one-eyed demon uncle, so okay.
My English is better than my French. But they're asking, eating toxins on a regular basis obviously doesn't help your liver be stronger. But what about getting occasional doses of such toxins in order to build up immunity?
We evolved that way. So you're eating whatever you found that day or whatever you hunted, and then maybe one day you eat the rotten potato or whatever it was, and then you get sick and your liver does its thing and your body immune system does its thing, and then you go back. So if you graph the stress of a biological system like that, it's going to look like, from your perspective, like this. You're going along, no toxins, eat something toxic, stress, recovery, no toxins, stress, recovery. Just like the way I recommend we exercise. That's exercise for your liver, right? Well, what happens if instead of coming along here and having one stress, there's always chronic stress? So there's toxins, really bad toxins. So you never get recovery. And this creates adrenal stress. This creates stress in the life. So what we're trying to do there is say, unless you're having a lot of toxins, don't have any toxins. But chronic background toxins, which is what processed food generates by definition, you take 1 million pounds of tomatoes. I used to live in Manteca, California, which is a very, very much farming kind of community. And you look at what's in a giant container, a big truckload of tomatoes, there's limits for all sorts of stuff, including spoiled tomatoes that can go into the back of the ketchup factory. And that's just because it's convenient. But if you're making your own ketchup, you toss the spoiled tomatoes. And this is one reason that fresh, local food, even the guy at your farmer's market, probably when he's making salsa, tosses out the bad tomatoes, but maybe uses the squishy ones because it was cheaper or faster. Who knows? You'll know. You eat it. If you're in a clean state, you eat it, you feel great. You eat it, you feel, wow, not like I did before. Well, then there's something not quite right there, and it's okay. Take some activated charcoal. You'll be fine with it. Speaking of activated charcoal, we have a bottle of activated charcoal. The upgraded coconut charcoal up here. I'm so stoked on this because this is the first week ever it's been available. It just came out, and we have a 10% off code, Creative Live, on the site right now for that stuff. It is the only way you can buy a bottle this big with capsules this big. All the other ones you get are tiny capsules and tiny bottles. So this is something that I keep in my backpack when I travel. If I'm not feeling like I should be feeling, I take some, and it generally helps me feel better. So, supplements for success. We have about 10 or about 15 more minutes, 10 more minutes. Yeah, good. Salt water. This sounds so controversial. I'm actually suggesting you put salt in water when you first wake up. If you're really sick or you're just not feeling so good, what you might want to do is actually have salt water next to your bed, so before you wake up, or not before you wake up, but right as you're waking up, but before you get up, you actually take this. What happens is your cortisol starts to rise in the morning, and that's what wakes you up. So right as you start waking up, your cortisol is going up, and your cortisol should go up then, because from an evolutionary standpoint, your nervous system, this operating system for your meat, it's thinking to its small, feeble brain, there might be a tiger. So now that I'm awake, I need to assess the situation, and I need to stand up. When I stand up, I'm going to need a lot of blood pressure so that the heart can squeeze everything and I can bring blood into the brain. Because if I stand up without enough blood pressure, I'll pass out, hit my head on a rock, and something will eat me, therefore I won't reproduce. So we have this little biological emergency called waking up. You don't think about any of this stuff, it's all automatic. But from the body's perspective, it's a bit of an emergency. So cortisol starts with that, and then it goes up. Well, it takes adrenal reserve to make cortisol in the morning. Adrenal reserve is a concept that's really important to understand. You have so much adrenaline, so much cortisol you can make before your adrenals run out of energy. If you're losing weight rapidly, you're using your adrenaline and your cortisol actually to help you metabolize the fat. So when you wake up in the morning, one way of preserving this adrenal reserve for later in the day is to have salt. Because one of the things cortisol is doing is playing with the ratio of sodium and potassium in the body. By raising sodium with salt water, instead of by making it happen with your adrenal hormones, you actually save energy for later in the day. I first talked about this in broad company on the Joe Rogan show a while back. And I got so many responses from mixed martial arts athletes, people who are doing CrossFit training. I don't know, you ever see this at South Bay CrossFit down in Hermosa Beach? Any kind of people who have added salt into their regimen to perform better?
Well, yeah, our nutritionist had prescribed that to me. So Himalayan sea salt in the morning, and like emergency.
Yeah,
I mix it up, take it first thing in the morning. So now I talk about it, and there's probably 36 people doing it.
Yeah, it's one of those things, it's not just an athletic kind of thing. I'm impressed your nutritionist must be good. Because when you add salt like that, I've seen this help grandmothers, lots of people. And you said, but salt raises blood pressure. And there's a whole talk, I've got it on YouTube if you're interested in finding it, about salt and what salt does and the effect of how a low salt diet can actually increase heart attack risk, and how the blood pressure changes for most people nominally from a higher salt intake, and how you need to manage the ratio of your minerals. All that stuff matters. So if you're listening to this online right now, and you're thinking, salt is bad, salt is neither good nor bad, it's just a mineral. And if it's in balance with magnesium and potassium, more salt in the morning gives you more energy all day long. And the feedback on Twitter and Facebook and all for what I said on the Joe Rogan show was extremely positive, to the point that On It now carries a nice Himalayan salt because of that. Take it when you wake up. Himalayan sea salt, am I like a total hippie? It has to be Himalayan because it's like Buddhist? No. I say Himalayan sea salt because now the oceans are full of some things we don't want in the ocean. 1 million years ago, when an ocean dried up and got buried by a mountain in the Himalayas, there were not a lot of persistent organic pollutants, and there wasn't as much mercury in the ocean. So you're just getting clean salt. And the reason you want clean salt is the pollution, and then most Himalayan salt is not mixed with flowing agents. When you get typical like Morton's salt, they put aluminum silicate so it flows out of the salt shaker nicely, and it's chemically purified sodium 100%, whereas you get trace minerals with the Himalayan salt. As a flavorful oriented gourmet kind of cook, I have lost track of the number of times I've brought as a housewarming gift, or instead of a bottle of wine, I'll bring a jar of salt to someone, and they go, salt? Like, that's a commodity. And it's, no, this is actually how we paid our Roman soldiers. This was the first spice trade routes were for salt. Like, this is a very traditional gift. Now, take your existing salt and take a pinch, and then take this and take a pinch. Good salt tastes very sweet on the tongue. It doesn't taste bitter and metallic, and a lot of people have learned to expect a bitter metallic taste, which is just very low quality salt from very chemically processed things. So whether you're doing it for the flavor or for the effect on your cognitive performance, even on your immune performance, don't skimp on the salt.
So I've been doing this for a while, and someone suggested I add vitamin C to it because the quality of salt can vary with the Himalayan stuff, because they said it would donate electrolytes or something. I didn't quite understand the story. Do you know anything about that?
You can definitely take vitamin C emergency, and that I think vitamin C when you wake up is a good idea anyway. Vitamin C only lasts 8 hours in the body, so 3 times a day for vitamin C is a normal dose. Unless you have time-release vitamin C, you might as well do them together.
Real quick. Well, number one, for people that don't know, your heart's a sodium potassium pump. You need salt. And two, I can't stand to put it in a glass of water. I throw either a half teaspoon. A teaspoon sometimes too much, but I throw it right on my tongue and just shoot a bunch of water down. I was just making sure that's okay.
I do that too because I'm lazy. I like mixing the salt in the water was an extra step.
Yeah, I just throw it on my tongue, shoot some water.
There's a very simple way to know if you got too much salt in the morning. Yeah. You'll be running to the bathroom.
Yep.
So if that happened, back off. A lot of people it's half a teaspoon, but if a teaspoon feels good, I know countless people whose day has been transformed by this practice. So salt, then bulletproof coffee, and the day is different. Adrenal glandulars are something that if you're a high-performance person who lives a stressful life, you probably should be on these prophylactically. I haven't seen a study about prophylactic use of these. Prophylactic means not birth control, for those of you who aren't familiar with that term. It means just in case you need it as a preventative measure. So what we're talking about here is literally the desiccated or dried up adrenal glands, usually from cows or sometimes sheep. The reason you take these is that they don't contain adrenaline or cortisol, but they contain building blocks that your body can use to support your own adrenals. So this is how you recover from adrenal exhaustion. But if you're doing something that would lead to adrenal exhaustion and you add capacity from these, I think it's a good idea, especially during bulletproof intermittent fasting, any kind of fasting practice, or to recover from intense exercise. So if you're going to go out and hit the CrossFit gym really hard, then you want to do this in the morning, and you want to do it the next morning after, and your recovery time and speed will be better. I've also taken them on an empty stomach, but technically the food is good. They don't upset your stomach, except the adrenal stress-in formula has a particular, I forget it, it's not licorice, there's a flavoring in there to make it so it has a better feeling in the stomach that some people don't like on an empty stomach. So I've heard a couple incidents of people getting really upset stomachs. I've taken them on empty stomachs quite a lot. I'm not that picky about the brand. Just make sure that it's an adrenal glandular supplement. A lot of people make adrenal formulas that are like vitamin B, and then they mark it up quite a lot, and vitamin B and vitamin C is not an adrenal formula, at least not the way I do adrenal formulas. And usually it's 2 capsules, maybe sometimes 1 in the morning, 1 at lunch, sometimes just in the morning. Depends on how you feel and what you're doing. There's adaptogenic herbs. This is things like rhodiola, ginseng, licorice root, and there are a whole variety of Russian and Chinese adaptogens. There's various formulas you can get out there. When you take adaptogens, it really affects how you feel. Throttle response is something that race car drivers understand. And if you've ever driven a car where you push the accelerator and instantly the car surges forward and you let off and it slows down, that's a car with fast throttle response. And if you've driven like your grandmother's Buick, I know the marketing team at Buick is probably going, oh my God, sorry. Anyway, when you're driving that old Buick, you push the accelerator and 3 seconds later, or like a Prius now, 3 seconds later it just kind of moves forward, and you put the brakes on and it slowly slows down. Your normal adrenal response is more like a Prius or an old Buick because it doesn't respond very quickly. What Chinese military people discovered like 1,000 years ago with adaptogenic herbs was that if you take the right herbs, you can have fast adrenal throttle response. What that means is that when you need adrenal hormones because someone's yelling at you and your body felt threatened, or because you're going to lift something really heavy, it doesn't really matter. You can call on them and they will surge forward, and you'll have all the adrenal hormones you need, and then when there's no more need for them, you'll turn them off quickly. So the normal adrenal response curve looks very slow like that, but when you're on adaptogens, you go this way, you go straight up and straight down and do it. Literally, this is so important that right before going into like sword fights, people would down tea with this in it in old Chinese military writings. The one here that I would caution you about is licorice root. If you take a lot of licorice root for a long period of time, that can depress your own cortisol production, so you want to cycle off that every 6 weeks if you're taking licorice root. It also can cause water retention. There's different brands. I can't say that there's one brand that's the most amazing because there's many different ones, but rhodiola is a very, very common one. Ginseng is a very common one. So this is worth doing some research, and I have a blog post about those I'm working on. And you basically can do more things for more time because you're not wasting as much capacity kind of warming up your adrenals. Deprenyl is a pharmaceutical substance. It's an MAO inhibitor and an antidepressant. It's also a very potent anti-aging drug when you use it at low doses, way, way lower than you would typically take for depression. If you are into ayahuasca ceremonies in Peru or anything like that, do not mix deprenyl with that kind of thing because that's not going to end well. This thing, it's a smart drug too. It reduces age-related decline of dopamine. So if you are trying to increase your performance, increasing dopamine levels for most people increases their mood and attention and their energy in the morning. Deprenyl, if you took it at night, can be a little bit stimulating because when you raise dopamine when you're trying to sleep, you don't always sleep better. In fact, oftentimes you sleep worse, or you have lucid dreams, one of the two. L-tyrosine is another one of those very common things that athletes would take. Tyrosine is an amino acid, which means it's a protein building block. It's common in all of your food. It's a natural substance. But when you take it mixed with other amino acids, you don't get the full benefit of it. If you take tyrosine, like 500 milligrams, on an empty stomach in the morning, it helps your body make thyroid hormone, and you feel quite good from that. So as an energizer, it's a great idea in the morning, especially if you're dragging, you're feeling tired, or you're looking at weight loss. PEA is an amine. That means it is something that you ought not to take if you have big allergy problems or if you're dealing with histamine problems, which are pretty widespread these days because your amine detoxification pathway, which relies on a substance called DAO in the liver, can't do it. However, if you don't have big allergy problems, you can try PEA to get a huge burst of energy. It basically makes you super alert. It'll also give you a screaming migraine if you're histamine intolerant. Let's see, you take it before meals, pre-workout, not pre-bed. PEA before bed is going to make a very long night. And one of the things that's good about this is it's a stress-reducing substance. Definitely worth paying attention to. And coenzymated B vitamins. We're not going to go into a whole hour-long lecture about each of the B vitamins and all the ones that you might want to take. B complexes are good because they're convenient, but if they have the wrong ratios of vitamin Bs for you, they can be inconvenient. What's important here is the word coenzymated, though. Each of the B vitamins has multiple steps to being metabolized, and the typical B complex has the very lowest level B vitamins that require the most steps of processing. Different people, depending on their genetics and on their exposure to the exposome, have a hard time methylating or activating these B vitamins. So you can buy B vitamins where they're already mostly ready for the body to use, and that means that they're coenzymated already. The difference in how they affect you can be really positive.
We've got lots of questions coming in about what I would describe as vitamins, but I know they're vitamins here in the US. Should we take vitamins at different times, then activated charcoal? I've always been confused about why vitamins wouldn't stick to activated charcoal, and that question comes from some guy.
If you're taking an herb or you're taking a protein or an amino acid, you should take it away from the activated charcoal. If you're taking vitamin C with activated charcoal, I haven't seen any evidence, and I don't know of any evidence that they're going to stick to each other. So it's a question of what the vitamin or what the charcoal has affinity for. As a general principle, take them separately. I will use activated charcoal on an empty stomach, or I'll use it with food when I'm eating at a restaurant. Those are the two times I normally take it. If I was going to take my vitamins at a restaurant, I have a little crack baggie of vitamins. I pop the pills, then I swallow them, I eat my meal, and if I think it was not a very clean meal, then I have the charcoal afterwards. By then, the vitamins have already entered my digestive tract, and the charcoal's on top of the food. It'll all get mixed eventually in the stomach, but I'll get enough of both, and honestly, you're not going to be perfect at any of this stuff anyway. You'll get some of the vitamins, and you'll bind some of the toxins, and overall, you'll probably move your net performance up. I wouldn't take a handful of adaptogenic herbs and a handful of charcoal at the same time, because the net impact of that will be zero. So there's 3 technologies that I want to look at here. We've already talked about the Bulletproof Vibe as a technology, but we didn't really talk about what you can do for like your body composition. I know Dr. Justin is going to use the Bulletproof Vibe a little bit. So what I wanted to do, I'm hoping that I brought it out here. I don't think we have the power lung out here, do we? We can do the power lung after Dr. Justin then. And the TENS unit. I think what we're going to do is the power lung and the TENS unit that we've got here. I don't think that I set them up here. So what we can do though is Dr. Justin in the back? Yes. Okay, we can bring Dr. Justin on now. In the meantime, why don't I start with the demo of the Bulletproof Vibe? So what I can do. You ready, Dr. Justin? Okay. Why don't we do that, and then during the Q&A we'll do the power lung. The power lung is a really cool thing that most people have never heard of, but it's such a great idea. So we're going to teach you how to do that. In the meantime, let's bring Dr. Justin Marchigiani on. If you've seen some of my videos, there's times when I talk about, in fact even here, I talk about how bright lights up here turn off this muscle for me sometimes. The guy who figured that out is actually Dr. Justin. So, Justin, tell me a little bit about your background, how you got to do the kind of work you do. You're down in Cupertino off the Anza, right across from Apple's headquarters. I've been to your office lots of times. I know you've got one of these in there, but how did you get to do the weird stuff you do, man? Because you're kind of like a biohacker here.
Well, it's that old expression, seek and you will find. So I just tried finding the most successful people and helping people heal from chronic injuries, pain, hormonal issues, infections, and just kind of jumped on their coattails. And success, begot success.
Awesome. And what are you trained in?
So my background, I've got a kinesiology degree from UMass, so I did a lot with muscle testing, exercise, and rehabilitation. And then from there, I only could get so far with patients. So then bringing on the bioelectric healing and the vibration really helped essentially energize my patient's recovery. And then the next aspect was looking at these chronic infections and the hormonal milieu that really helps create the anti-inflammatory environment that allows the body to heal.
You've got about 10 minutes worth of slides, and then you're going to do a demo. But before, just so people who are online listening, what are you going to do for the demo? You've got some Frankenstein gear somewhere over here that even we don't have to bring it on now, but just give us a hint of what's to come.
So what we're going to do is we're going to actually scan the patient who has an injury, and we're going to find out where the actual injury is coming from. And again, where the injury, where the pain is, and where the actual cause of the injury is are usually 2 different things. So we're going to kind of get to the root of that.
And we're going to use electrical stimulation
to
stimulation, scanning,
yeah,
right?
pretty powerful.
Okay. So you're going to see electrodes moved across skin and muscles twitching, and it's quite dramatic, actually. And can we make someone scream today?
We could.
Because you've made me scream like a girl in your office.
You're pretty intense, Dave.
All right. I'm really looking forward to hearing your presentation. I'll be right off stage over here.
Awesome.
And ready to go?
Thank you.
Cool.
All right.
There it is.
And left and right. Perfect. All right, so the whole goal of today's talk really is to heal faster and perform better. And the simple biohacks that if we can incorporate into our life, it's going to allow us just to perform better. And it's not about working harder. It's about working smarter. And those are the simple things we're going to go over today. So again, first, kind of epigenetics is the foundation. I'm going to go through this slide briefly, but we have 3 main stressors in the body: physical, chemical, and emotional stressors. Physical, old injuries; chemical, hormonal imbalances; fatigue, hormonal issues; chronic inflammation; and emotional things as well. All of these actually interact on our genes and flip our genetic switches on or off. This is called epigenetics, and we want to control our stressors so we can smile. All right, so we have the ability to express optimal health. And if we don't express optimal health, right, this leads to symptoms. Chronic symptoms eventually lead to disease.
So again, our body is designed to adapt, and all of these stressors actually interact on one another. So chronic pain from an old sports injury creates chemical inflammation and may prevent you from doing certain activities that you enjoy doing, like golfing or playing with your kids. All right, so all of these stressors kind of accumulate. This is kind of the key thing, is we have our natural stress bucket here, and all of these stressors actually go in our bucket, right? Physical, chemical, emotional. We're eating gluten. We're getting exposed to mycotoxins, right? Drinking bad coffee. All of these things add up in our bucket, and stress tends to accumulate. And the typical person is running out, right? Stress accumulates. Our bucket overflows. We have symptoms now. This is called bucket dysfunction in my world, right? And typically we're getting prescribed a medication that inherently is more toxic and is providing more stress onto the bucket. So we have this vicious cycle that just goes round the clock. So our goal kind of as biohackers is really to go in, figure out where those stressors are, and actually go backwards and pull them out so we can allow the environment to heal. That's kind of the first thing. Even when we're doing physical issues, trying to help people from old injuries heal, most thing I see with chiropractors and physical therapists and even medical doctors is they don't get the environment, the hormonal environment set up for healing to be essentially to be able to progress. So like I said right here, this is another slide kind of depicting that whole process. Our body's designed to adapt, right? We have stress, physical, chemical, and emotional. If we don't address it, we continue to maladapt, and we eventually work our way to phase 3, where we see symptoms. We go to our doctor, right? And eventually more symptoms lead to premature death. So our goal is to remove the underlying stressors, remove the barriers to healing so our body can start adapting and moving backwards. That's kind of the goal. And the foundation for that with all my patients is really the bulletproof diet, right? Because it's providing the raw material. And the biggest thing is the fats, because we'll go over the hormone cascade. What you're going to find is all your fats are the precursor to all your hormones, right? All of these hormones that help build you up and providing the raw material for joints and tendons and for ligaments to heal. So your brain, all right? Really important thing, 70% of your brain's fat. So we want to provide the raw material, but we also want to provide the right stimulation. So the brain, raw material on one side, stimulation on the other side. And we're going to go into the stimulation part. So essentially, our body is designed to absorb force. And the number one stress on our body is gravity, coming right down on us, 24/7. And our body is designed to absorb force, ideally like this diving board is. The man jumps up, the board comes down, it goes back up. Force is being dispersed each way. Just like here. This gentleman here being in a good posture and having his muscles in balance, we're seeing force being absorbed properly, and we're avoiding the injuries, we're avoiding the pain, we're avoiding the inflammation. So again, 90% of the stimulation and nutrition to the brain is generated by movement. So proprioception is really important. That's why doing specific adjustments, using whole body vibration and current drive that. It's basically, it allows us to essentially put the patient on steroids, if you will, in regards to just flooding the brain with all that good healthy movement to heal. And here's the important thing, only 10% of our brain's energy goes into thinking and performance and metabolism and immune system. So our goal is to get this 90% down so well so the body can be essentially more focused on the healthy immunity, performance, function, looking good, all those good things. So again, what's actually happening here, we have two main signals going to the brain. We have pain movement, or we have pain, and we have proprioception, or just in general movement. So when we're in chronic pain, what we see is this pain signal goes up, all right? So our goal is to use specific modalities, electricity, specific manipulation, soft tissue, and vibration to flip the switch, to take away the pain signal and to bring up the movement signal. Because if we're stuck in that pain lock, we're creating this hormone called cortisol, and over time, cortisol actually destroys the area of the brain called the hippocampus. A lot of Dr. Robert Sapolsky's work out of Stanford showed this. So it's really important we provide the right stimulation to the brain. So nutrition, right? The bulletproof diet is kind of the foundation. And then the stimulation really is good movement, providing current and proprioception through vibrations, always the best option in my book. And that's the goal, healthy brain. So here's your muscle right here. Your muscle is designed to absorb force, okay? So imagine this muscle here. This is the muscle belly. Right, imagine it being cut in half. So we're looking at it going up. So this is the muscle cut in half right here. Okay, these little ions right here have to interact, and that creates a depolarization. It brings that charge from 110 closer to 0, and the muscles contract and relax. So our body's able to absorb force through that muscle elongating. So A normal contraction looks just like this. So imagine jumping up in the air and coming down. Your glute and your hamstrings have to elongate to absorb force. So now, if we have injury to the muscle, so our muscle can't depolarize, so these ions can't go back and forth, we can't generate a muscle contraction, so what happens is this. We eventually have inflammation or injury. All right? And over time, if we don't fix this, this is what happens. This is what we call a compensation pattern. Force comes in, and then we eventually maybe develop a limp. So for instance, I have a Division I college athlete that flew in to come see me for the week. He has chronic ankle sprains, and what we found after assessing him is his hip and knee muscles are not stabilizing properly. Therefore, force is being distributed down to the ankle. So our goal is to get that on, turn these muscles on properly with specific techniques and vibration and current to allow this compensation pattern to be adjusted. And we have all the inflammation right here, and that's creating the injury. So we want to fix this so the muscle can now absorb force properly. That's the ultimate goal. And coming up here, we'll show you how you can use specific current to find the underlying cause, because a lot of times the pain or the inflammation is not necessarily where the cause is. So again, cortisol, the excess cortisol is really driving in the breakdown of that brain, driving the hippocampus. So we also want to look well, we want to perform well, but we want to be able to think well at the same time. So really kind of a holistic set of goals there. And that's what we're trying to avoid here, no Homer Simpson brain. All right, so again, there's a concept in functional neurology called hemisphericity. So when we become more sympathetic dominant, meaning we're breaking down faster than we're building up, we tend to have a hemisphericity. So one side of the brain, or the cortex, becomes dominant over the other. All right, and certain sides of the brain have different characteristics, right? Your left brain, more analytical, right brain, more picture, more emotionally oriented. So what we find is this hemisphericity creates more sympathetic tone. So that's kind of why we use things like the M wave or HRV to drive up the parasympathetic. So what we see when patients or people are in that sympathetic lock, as we call it, we see digestion issues, for instance. We see excess cortisol. So here's someone with a hemisphericity. We're seeing one side of the brain a little bit more dominant over the other, and we can test that by doing specific muscle tests, doing specific neurological tests to assess what side that may be on. And it can affect digestion because we're not able to break down nutrients. We're creating excess cortisol, and many of those receptors are around the tummy, so we start to see it in the waist. So this is the foundation here, because if our hormonal milieu, if you will, is not in balance, it's not going to provide the raw material for us to heal. So all of our hormones come from cholesterol. This is why the grass-fed butter, high-quality fats and proteins are the foundation. If we don't have those building blocks, our hormones aren't going to work. I can attribute a lot of my female hormone patients over the last 10 years have come directly from the low-fat craze of the last 20 years. So I'd rather get my patients eating the raw material so their hormones are balanced. So essentially we have cholesterol up top. We start seeing cortisol here. This is dealing with the stress and inflammation and blood sugar side. And on this side over here with the pink and the blue, those are our anabolic hormones. So we have our progesterone and estrogen that help keep women fertile and have a healthy cycle. And we have our androgenic hormones for our men. We both have each, just different ratios for each. So when we have a stressor, that could be a physical pain, that could be a chronic stressor from an infection or emotional issues, that takes our hormone substrate, our precious cholesterol, and drives it towards cortisol. And if we don't address that stressor over long periods of time, that cortisol eventually starts going down along with our anabolic hormones. So now you can see we're breaking down faster than we're building up. And if we keep that stressor there, cortisol eventually drops out too. So our goal is to remove that stress, right? Kind of these stress detectives, and that allows our hormones to come back on track. So looking at the adrenals, thyroid, different functional tests to assess inflammation provides the raw material. So when we do the vibration, we do the current, it gives us the ability to heal. So that's kind of confusing, I know. So hormone pool, that equals cholesterol, right? We have our stress hormones on one side, anti-aging hormones on the other side. If we have these chronic insidious stressors, what we find is this. We see the out of balance in our hormones, right? We see the stress hormones start going up, anti-aging down. So our goal is to get to the root of the stress, bring the hormones back into balance, and then this allows us to essentially perform better and heal better. So the big idea, what's the big idea here? What's the key takeaway? Well, again, get bulletproof. The foundation of all my patients is to have the high-quality fat, to have the low-toxin food, the anti-inflammatory food. That's the foundation for anyone that wants good hormonal health and performance. Grab the low-hanging fruit, all right? Really important. Make sure your body is in balance. Get assessed, get tested. Try to find someone that does specific muscle testing to find your imbalances. Because if your muscles aren't firing properly, force gets absorbed by disc, tendons, and ligaments, and we get itis or inflammation and breakdown. So we want to get to the root of the issue. Again, use functional tests to assess your hormonal milieu, right? Cortisol rhythm tests, looking at your thyroid, looking at different markers for inflammation, C-reactive protein, testing for infections. All these things are really important because they rob your body from the ability to heal. And the last standpoint is a lot of things going on here to kind of navigate your journey towards health. Any questions, you can feel free to visit my site, justinhealth.com/free-consult. For any questions, I'll look at your lab test for you and make sure you're on the right track at least. Thanks for having me here.
That's wonderful, Justin. Thank you very much. And I know we're going to have some questions from from our internet audience, but do we have anything from our live studio audience here?
We're also going to hook some people up, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe if we can start answering questions while we get...
Sure.
Maybe Courtney can come up. I'll take care of that. Will you answer some questions?
Great. Hi there, Courtney. Nice to meet you too. So what's your chief issue here? You have a shoulder issue or neck issue?
I definitely, my neck and shoulder is totally tight. I have had this crazy weird hip from a long time ago that I feel like is the ultimate.
Got it. So typically when we're looking at a patient, we would do like a full exam to kind of assess that hemisphericity thing we talked about. But just for the sake of being in studio here, we'd skip the part where we test all your muscles and see what's imbalanced. That's kind of the core. Just providing the current alone won't get the long-term solution, but just so you can kind of see how it feels, we'll go into that, okay? Why don't you take your jacket off and get comfortable? So what we're going to do is we're going to provide some current through your muscle. All right, so typically what happens, current goes in, and it's going to come back out to the opposite path. So we're going to have two paths on you like this, and we're going to actually go through and scan and figure out where that inflammation is. And you may find that it's not in the same place as the pain. You may feel like it is. It's really it's different for every single person. Okay? But the key thing is we're not just focusing on the pain, right? We're not just exercising that weak muscle or trying to inject steroids into that painful muscle. We're trying to get to the root there. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some pads on you here. We're going to put this pad right here. Just put it against your tummy for me, right against your skin as well. All right, I'm going to put this pad right here. I'm going to just put it against your arm, and we're going to give you some juice, give you some current, all right? And I want you to tell me where you're at about a 5 out of 10 in regards to sensation. So 0's nothing, 10's the most you can handle, 5's right in the middle. Okay. It'll just kind of feel like your legs falling asleep, that tingly kind of feeling. Yeah. All right? Perfect. All right, so I'm going to start giving you a little bit of juice. It's not going to hurt you. Let me know where you're at. Kind of walk me up. 1, 2.
1.
Okay, good.
That's probably 5.
5 right there? Okay, cool.
Definitely my arms.
Got it. And where's the key issue right now? You said the back of this shoulder here and this neck?
I mean, I just call it front here. I'm sure it's from being on the plane yesterday.
Got it. So I'm going to just start. I'm going to scan away from the injury, just so you can feel when things start to increase. So we have that baseline at 5. So you're going to let me know where there's a hot spot. That means anything above 5. And we're going to kind of figure out those top 2 or 3 spots that are the most sensitive for you, okay? So I'm going to just bring the hat up here. You're going to just communicate to me and let me know where you're at. Anything there, particularly? Okay, I'm going to come to the back just because we don't have good access through your shirt.
I can, I have a tank top.
That'd actually be best if you could do that.
Actually, Dr. Justin, maybe you tell us the name of the machine. Some people are asking like
It's basically a combination of a TENS slash microcurrent. So providing specific DC currents at 500 pulses per second. So we're able to put that current through. It's going through the black. It's going through the brain back to the red. And again, when that kind of injury occurs, she's going to feel an increase in sensation. That's kind of the key component here. It allows us to search and find out where the injury is. So typical TENS unit, they just slap the current on the muscle, and the muscle gets really short and you don't really do much. We actually find that muscle that's injured, and we're doing certain exercise to get that compensation pattern broken up. So you're going to let me know where you start to feel. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Great. All right. I'll grab that back from you.
Excellent.
We'll treat you later. Perfect.
The reason this is so interesting is that we've had TENS. In fact, I'll show you guys the TENS unit later, and that's also come a long way. But the reason this is so interesting is that you are not very good at knowing where the root of a pain in your body is. In fact, it's nearly impossible. Now, you can take someone like Dr. Justin here, who's trained in the movement patterns here, and even someone who does functional movement, and they'll normally say, well, if you're moving this way, you have pain here, maybe it's from down here, maybe it's from over here, and then there's some things you can do. But what Dr. Justin does that's new and interesting is he's actually using electricity here to figure out your body goes, ow, when you go here, even if your pain's up here, if you hurt right here, this is a new way of using electrical current.
Exactly.
And it's the sort of thing that you actually could do in your own home, potentially, as this kind of biohacking technology becomes more available. So you have pain, where is it? I don't know, I'll move this thing around. Oh, I've got a problem here, I didn't know it was here. But now you know. This is a way of your meat, the operating system for your meat, telling you this is what's going on. So let you get back to your demo now that we've got that worked.
All right, let's put that guy right back on your tummy again for me. So we're going to just come right up the back of your arm, and you're going to just let me know when we go greater than that 5 number you gave me, okay? So we're coming up, and you may even feel muscles pulsate too,
Feel
or kind of fasciculate, if you will. Okay, I'm going to come up here. Typically, the levator scap and the upper trapezius is always a hot spot because we're sitting. That's kind of our typing muscle. You may feel a pull in here. Feel a pull right there? That's like your levator scap, upper trapez. Anyone that types, it's a predictable muscle that gets really short and tight.
Definitely there. It's funny, all the places that I feel
right
things,
here,
I don't
essentially
feel
right up here. Okay? And I also find some up and under the bicep tendon here. Do you feel it right there? How about anything under here too?
Right there.
So I see a lot of typical patterns with people that are typing a lot or on the computer.
I don't type a lot.
You don't type a lot? Okay, good. What kind of job you got?
I do stunt work and...
Oh, so you're pretty physical anyway. Okay, great. So again, we see up here and we see here. So typically what we do, I'll do a little bit more of a fuller assessment and do both sides, but just for sake of time, we put some, we put a pad right on you here so we can provide that current right into that area. So we got that upper trapezius muscle, and we're going to do this lower part here too, where this came up positive as well. So now what we're doing is we're bombarding the brain with extra stimulation. And that's kind of the key component to drive healing and to reduce inflammation. So I'm going to lower the current here so we don't give you a zap, all right? All right, I'm going to put this in here first. Let me grab that current there too. Perfect. All right, great. So I'm going to start out with like a 3 out of 10. Okay, so I'm going to just inch you up, just say 1, 2, and we'll stop at 3 to start. And I'm going to have you do the strokes, just like that. All right?
The whole time?
Just for a couple seconds to get this. Perfect. Let me know when you hit 3 out of 10.
Maybe 3.
Okay, good. So what are the main movements you're doing every day that do you think are causing this issue?
My shoulder, I feel like personally that happens when I'm not active.
Not active.
If I'm really active, I feel like my shoulders, well, not totally.
What type of stunts do you find yourself doing on an everyday basis?
On an everyday basis, mostly just training. I mean,
any movements that repeat itself?
Sure, hanging, pulling.
Okay, hanging, got it. Okay, so I'm going to have you just do some mountain climbers. I'm going to have you really reach up and pull down. Reach up and pull down. Awesome. Good, I'm going to hold these down here for you just so we have maximal conductivity. I'm going to increase the current a little more. Let me know when you get to about 5 out of 10.
Maybe 5.
And the nice thing about this is we can actually measure inflammation because this is on a 0 to 10 dial, so we can see where her 10 is. That may be at a 3 or 4 on here, and then over time she'll be able to go higher and higher and higher. So someone like Dave, his nervous system is trained, we can get him to almost max out the device. But someone who comes in who's intro and who's injured and inflamed, it goes lower. So we're going to increase it a little more. I'm going to push you to 10 a little bit faster than I normally would just for sake of time. So let me know. Keep counting your numbers for me.
6.
Good. Keep counting. And as you can see, she's sweating pretty bad. So she's really in shape. She's a stunt person. Yet she's doing a very simple movement, right? She's just reaching over her head and coming down with no weight. Where are you at?
8.
Good. Now?
Probably 9.
Good. See, we're
I could probably go further. Okay, that's 10.
10 right there? Awesome. Awesome.
I'm
Okay, I'm
not
going to
sure
go
I
a
can
little
do
bit
very
left
much.
and you can bite through it. Keep going, keep going. You got it.
Okay.
Keep going it for you. Now what's going to happen is the threshold here, your body and your nervous system adapt, and that stimulation starts dropping, and she can overcome that pattern. Good. How are you feeling right there?
It's like kung fu training.
Good. Now let me see your arm. We're going to have you pull right out of your hip and come right up like this, like you're the Statue of Liberty.
Okay.
Good. And then come right back down. Same thing. Keep doing that. I'm going to keep pushing you until you can't do the simple movement. All right. I'm going to keep pushing you. A little slower for me. Better form. Good. Kind of like you're holding that torch. Just like that. There you go. Keep going. Keep going.
Okay.
Right there. There you go. See, I'm going to go just a little below it. I'm going to go a little below. Good. Good form. Watch me. There you go. So wrist over elbow over shoulder. Excellent job. Keep going. So she's at about a 4.8, 4.9 out of 10. So not bad for an injury like that, but again, the goal was to get her to a 10. How are you feeling there?
Cool.
Good. Now what we're going to do is this. I'm going to reverse the current. So the nervous system works on efferent and afferent pathways. Information in's afferent, information out's efferent. So we switch it. So now stimulation's coming in through the red and out through the black path. So
Same action?
It's just forcing the nervous system to adapt.
Same action?
We're going to have you go back to these just to get loose.
So, to step in for a second here, Dr. Justin.
Yeah.
You just said that this machine is helping to suck inflammation out.
That's the goal, yeah.
Well, that's a pretty big thing. If you haven't heard about this before, which most people on Earth haven't, that using electricity like that, we talked about earthing, we talked about some other things like that, electrons control inflammation, and this kind of stuff that Dr. Justin works with here, it really affects inflammation. And he's talking to her nervous system here, telling it, you need to put fat here, you need to build new nerves here. So this is a way of talking to the meat in the body that's different than the way a kettlebell doing exactly the same thing would do. The body would protect this muscle back here. Don't use that muscle because you're doing a kettlebell. But here the electricity is making the muscle fire, which is going to change her brain. Exactly. So there's some awesome stuff going on here that's literally, it's biohacking. And this is not the way that you would do traditional physical therapy or traditional weight training. It's something new.
Excellent. Go to this right here. The one caveat is, though, is we find if patients aren't on a bulletproof diet, I see a lot of people who are vegetarians and vegans as well. They don't heal as well because they don't have that fat and protein to help myelinate those nerves and build up that muscle tissue. So having the raw material there is really important. This is just basically telling the workers, hey, put more concrete there, put more wood there. It's providing the stimulus for the raw material to come in and rebuild. Good job. I'm going to just push up a little higher here. How are you feeling?
Good.
So you got to about a 4.8 last time, I think. I'm going to push you a little more, see if we
You
can
can
get
go
back
to
there.
10?
All right. I don't know. You probably break down into a C shape.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm going to stand here if you go to a 10. Just in case.
You come right into this.
I spent a lot of time doing this on the position.
Yeah.
How are you feeling?
Great.
Good. I'm going to push you a little more.
Okay. Okay.
Good?
Uh-huh.
You feel that?
Yeah,
If
I
I
feel
went
like
maybe
I-
another half turn more, you'd go right into that position, the T-Rex position.
Yeah, I feel like also
Good
my
form, though. Good form.
neck feels like it's about 5 times the width.
Yes. So now I'm going to pull you off here. Typically we do about 8 to 10 minutes, 4 on each current or each polarity. You went to about 4.5 that time, so... No, it's actually not bad. If you're chronically injured, we see people at like usually a 2.
Okay.
So not bad, but there's some inflammation there. Kind of move around a little bit. It's not going to fix the issue right now, but you will feel looser because we're basically telling the muscles elongate, relax, contract, or a lot of times they're in this holding pattern trying to protect.
Yeah.
So this is the kind of technology that you'll be seeing over the next 10 years become...
Still needs it.
It's a consolation gift. No, we'll
I'll take it off for you.
Perfect. Thanks.
So what you'll find is that this is the sort of technology that will percolate through potentially CrossFit gyms, potentially areas where we're crossing over from medicine into performance, where you can use this for someone who has a weakness but not necessarily a specific injury, and it's pretty cool stuff. Was that a question for Dr. Justin?
It is really cool stuff. I mean, the internet has been buzzing, but I think, Dr. Justin, a few people are not necessarily understanding the terminology. Is it possible to break it down perhaps into a little bit more of layman terms?
Sure. In regards to the device, the current, so again, we have specific current coming in. We have DC current. That is essentially how our nervous system works, right? We have our central nervous system, brain, nerves coming down to the extremities.
And by the way, DC means like from a battery, direct current, not like from the wall, the AC, which is alternating current.
Right, exactly. Alternating current from the wall. Typically, our body runs on this DC current, so we're using current that's more in harmony with our nervous system. When we do AC current, or we see it in typical PT settings, like Russian stim or TENS, the muscle just tends to contract. You sit there, you don't do much. All that's doing is blocking that pain signal to the brain. Remember the movement pathway and the pain pathway? It's just bombarding the pain pathway. But it's not really doing much to fix the underlying cause, one. It's not providing an anti-inflammatory environment, two. And it's not finding the underlying cause, because we can scan and find the underlying cause. The therapist would just be putting it on the area of pain, which may not be the cause. That's the big difference.
So Dr. Justin, you use electrical stimulation quite a lot when I come and I see you when I'm in town.
Yeah.
We definitely do that. But sometimes you use that when the person's on the Bulletproof Vibe. Why do you do them together sometimes?
One, I find it provides a nice anesthetic. I find patients can go about 10 to 20% more on the current, which is nice. Two, that proprioceptive input, I like it afterwards because it's helping with circulation. That's one of the biggest things. When we're inflamed too, we have this hypercoagulability, meaning red blood cells stick together more. So this is really helping to promote circulation, which helps decrease inflammation and helps provide healing faster.
So proprioception, which Dr. Justin was talking about, is the idea that your mind knows where your body is in space. And our sense of proprioception is our sense of body awareness. And all of us have pretty poor quality body awareness, even like pro athletes. Maybe, Courtney, you're a stunt person, so I'm guessing you have a better sense of body awareness than average because you keep getting whacked if your body's in the wrong place, right? So you would learn, I don't know where my feet are. I have to consciously, because I used to walk like this as a kid. So one of the things we've worked on is I've learned to straighten my feet out, but every now and then I catch myself doing this and I straighten up because I'm still hacking that part of me. But the electrical stuff like this has been a big part of that. Like the work that we've done specific was on reprogramming my nervous system, not through here, which is the old way of driving change. I wanted to change, I used my willpower, I forced change, but we did it through there, where we told the nerves what to do and the nerves told the brain what to do, which is a very different paradigm, and it lets us have much faster progress than you would expect.
Right, and the nice thing with the vibration, that 30 hertz frequency, we're basically screaming at our nervous system saying adapt, absorb force properly. So we're stimulating that brain through current, through proprioception of the different vibrational frequencies to drive healing and lower inflammation. That's kind of the ultimate goal. Yeah.
Could you use this to kind of shortcut that proverbial 10,000 hours for complex skill acquisition?
Absolutely, that's the big thing. And if you want to go into the work of Jay Schroeder, he trains a lot of professional athletes. The next level, once you have the foundation, is doing this because you're driving 500 pulses per second of information. Your brain's typically sending 1 pulse per second. So we can get 500 times more work accomplished in the same amount of time. That's why I think it was Courtney was very much sweating and just doing a simple movement. You could see she was really straining because we're providing more input. As long as form is good, right? Then we can essentially get to a higher level faster, for sure.
And is it doing that? Is the mechanism just increasing myelin growth along that pathway?
That's part of it, but also really, I would say, really providing that stimulus to the brain to help that sensory cortex develop the proprioception and the ability to absorb force. That's what athletics is all about. Who can absorb force the best? Who can change direction the best?
Could you have someone from the audience come up and maybe just do a squat on a whole body vibe and just guide them through it the way you would do it?
Absolutely.
Anyone
wants to come up? Perfect. Awesome.
Question for you while you're setting that up as well. We have a lot of people who are interested to know more about not only how they can learn to train how to do some of what you're doing using this, but then also where they can get that treatment. So first of all, is ARJMB, is this the same thing as what a lot of chiropractors have in their office? And if so, I think I've experienced it before, just not with exercise, or is this something different?
A lot of times it's different. Typically people are referring to like the TENS unit or like Russian stim or things like that. This is more of a hybrid between the two. The Russians kind of had this technology down in the 70s and combined a couple of modalities to create this. So not quite the same thing. There's a couple places. ArcWave New Jersey is a good place. ArcWave Austin is a great place. They do the rehab part and the high-level training part.
Great. Thank you.
Perfect. So I'm going to turn this on. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Will that create too much noise?
Wouldn't you stand on it while he turns it on so it doesn't vibrate around?
So doing a squat here, the first thing we want to do, typically if we're having a load, if we're having weight, we squat a little bit differently, but now we do a little bit different because we're just doing more form. So we're going to have our feet about shoulder width apart, toes pointing straight. This is a little bit, controversial. Some say 10, 15 degrees. That's fine for weight, but for now, just straight. What you're going to do is hold your hands out straight. Take a deep breath in. Draw your belly button into your spine, and you're going to the first motion is driving your butt out, back, and down while keeping your knees not going past your shoelaces. And then you're going to drive right back up to the middle part of your foot. And now we'll put the vibration on, so now you get the stimulus going to the brain at the same time.
Take a step up this way a little bit so it'll stop vibrating.
There you go. Good, toes pointing forward, hands out straight, deep breath in, draw your tummy in, head straight, driving your butt out, back, and down, and right back up to the middle part of your foot. Excellent. Bring your hips all the way forward, just like that. Very good. The biggest mistake in a squat movement is the first motion tends to be the knees going forward. That shifts the weight to the knees. That's the biggest cause of almost all knee problems. The first motion should be driving the hips back. That puts the weight on the glutes, the biggest muscle in the body, and then we're driving back, so we're pushing in a dresser draw with your butt, and then coming down, versus here. This is bad. This is good. You can see my knees don't really break my shoelaces. Head up, chest up, and ideally tummy in to help get that TVA internal core system activated. Great. Come right back up. And the next step, what we typically do is we do an iso hold. So we'd come down like this. You could hold something like this, chest up, and we'd have you hold here for about 2 or 3 minutes, and your muscles have to contract just to keep you there. So we're trying to tell your muscles, absorb force, absorb force, absorb force. Yeah, go for it. And if you drop in and hold that right there for me, we'll just do a nice 10-second hold. And then your brain's being bombarded right now with all that good stimulation.
So 30 times a second his brain thinks he's doing a squat right now, which is totally cheating.
And there's a great video of Dwight Freeney. Essentially, he tore his ligaments on the inside part of his ankle before the 2010 Super Bowl, and they rehabbed him. That injury is a 6 to 8 week healing time. He was back on the field in 6 to 8 days with the same type of therapy, with the stimulation and the vibration. 6 to 8 days from 6 to 8 weeks. Powerful. Come back up. Keep your chest up for me. Bring your hips underneath yourself. Good. So the key thing is, if you're out of balance, though, you don't want to be doing movements when you're out of balance, because you're just building up bad compensation patterns.
Okay. You feel that? That was just, what, 2 minutes maybe? Can you guys see the sweat and all? You're done, yeah. Thank you. The Bulletproof Vibe is designed for use at home or in a chiropractic practice like yours. And we have a special today. They're $200 off for the first 5 people who wants one. The code is what is it? VP Live. And so if that's of interest to you, check it out. I'm just doing that to help people who are watching this. I use this. My kids 3 and 6 use it. It's gentle enough for that sort of thing, and it just makes your whole body get more exercise in less time. If you're not going to go for an hour-long walk, you get the circulation you want here. But I like the fact that you're doing like more of a proper squat on it.
Yes, absolutely. Great.
We're running short on time. Let's give a big thanks to Dr. Justin.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate having me.
It's been great. I'd like to remind our viewers how they can contact you, where they can find you.
JustinHealth.com. I'm actually in Cupertino in the Apple campus, and I'm also down in Austin, Texas quite frequently these days. And they can always schedule a free consult, too, to ask me any questions. JustinHealth.com/free-consult. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Dr.
Thank you.
We have a few minutes left, and one of the other devices for training the body that really makes sense to know about is called the Power Lung. And I have these on Upgraded Self. The coupon code for Upgraded Self will also work for this. The Creative Live is the coupon code there. This is lifting weights for your lungs. Now, all you do is you pick a resistance here by dialing a dial. You can sort of see, you can increase or decrease the amount of resistance. You put it in your mouth like this. Now, in order to breathe out like that, I am using every shred of muscle. Like, you want to have like the ripped ribs showing here? This is used to teach professional speakers. By the way, am I a decent professional speaker? I like to think I am. As well as singers and professional athletes and pro fighters and people like that. They use this because you can change your VO2 max, which is your ability to basically breathe and your ability to take up oxygen. So this is a relatively inexpensive, I think they're around $60, don't quote me on that, a relatively inexpensive device that really, really makes a difference. So if you want to know what a biohacker looks like, when you're bored at home late at night, I might look something like this, where I'm vibrating, and normally I'd have a kettlebell in each hand, and I'd be going, and it'll take me all of about 1 minute before I feel like I'm going to die. And by the way, this normally doesn't make that sound. It's because the floor is a little bit uneven and we haven't put a pad underneath it, so it's much quieter than the rattling that you were just hearing then. So this is a pretty neat way. If you're into training or you have breathing capacity problems, the lungs are just like your bicep. You can have a muscle here by doing curls, or you can have muscles here. And honestly, if these are working well, you're going to speak better, you'll be able to sing better, and you may even sleep better because you've increased your tissue oxygenation, just because you can bring more oxygen in. The reason I do this and this together is that, number one, I might as well get the benefit. If I'm going to take 2 minutes of this, I might as well get my body stimulated and get circulation happening. But as I'm bringing more oxygen in, I also want to make sure that I get the microvascular circulation that happens as the whole body's moved like that. So it's a neat way of sort of stacking technologies together. This is called the Power Lung. It's on upgradedself.com. And there's one more toy. We talked about TENS. TENS is the oldest form of electrical stimulation. A while ago, maybe in the 80s, you could buy the ab belt, which would have, little bits of stimulation here. And this device, I bought it in Beijing when I was there a couple weeks ago, and it was, I forget the exact exchange rate, somewhere between $4 and $6. And you know what? It's a perfectly functional computer-controlled TENS unit, better than the one that I've had at home that took like 6D batteries that was this big. Now, this is a way that you can relax muscles at home and even increase a little bit of oxygenation. It does nothing like the sort of technology that Dr. Justin was just using in order to tell your nervous system where it's turned off. But if you have aches and pains, you could pop a Tylenol or something and decrease the amount of glutathione in your liver and your ability to detoxify other things. Or maybe you might want to have one of these little guys at home, and you can do a search on Amazon for TENS, electrical stimulation, and you can put the electrodes on wherever it hurts. In fact, why don't we have a demo? Someone have any sort of sore muscles? Come on up, and we'll look at the difference between how the other one worked and how this works. And anywhere you should do it?
Back here.
All right, so we'll stick an electrode here. And any other spots? We'll just do it on the other side.
Neck.
Okay. There is a little bit of precision. You can put these on specific sites where muscles insert and whatnot, but most people put it where it hurts. Notice, with Dr. Justin, we looked at where's the source of the problem versus the source of the pain. So this is more treating a symptom kind of thing, but it's a very inexpensive device. So just push the plus button until, you see the jerk there? Push it a little bit, it still hurts a little bit. So turn a little bit sideways so the camera can see the muscle tension right here. It should be pulsing in and out, right? Mm-hmm. So what's going on there is we're firing the muscles but not making changes to the nervous system like the other device did. But still, this kind of technology is a useful thing, and sometimes when you go to the chiropractor, they'll put a pulsing current just like this on a sore muscle to massage the muscle. So this is a form of called electrical massage. The fact that it's gone in the last 10 years from a big box full of batteries to a vanishingly small device, smaller than an iPhone, that you can buy on the street for $6 in China is pretty profound. The speed of change there is almost as fast as the speed of change of things like computer processors, Moore's Law. So we're going to be seeing the ability to use electricity on your nervous system more and more and more frequently. You can sit down and use it if you want, or just if it's hurting a lot, stop.
We are. This morning's session. That's the thing, when you come to a Creative Live show, everybody gets involved, so thanks to all of our audience this morning for taking part. It's been great. We are just take a couple of questions before we go to the break.
All right, so one question came in from EM1L. Would this be beneficial for people who have become numb or are unable to control their muscles correctly, like with spasms?
I don't think a normal TENS unit is something that I would use there. I would want to talk to a doctor or someone like Dr. Justin, who is using electricity in more of a therapeutic, like changing the nervous system function way.
Thank you.
Okay, any questions from our audience, and then we'll wrap for this session.
So I know in China they use electroacupuncture. I'm just wondering if there's any relationship between TENS and that.
Electroacupuncture is the idea of going to an acupuncture point on the body and then using an electrical probe there instead of a needle. It's kind of amazing, but we have spots on our body that are mapped out by different traditions on different cultures that generally line up, and you can stimulate them in several different ways. Number one, you can push on a site like that. Number two, you can hit it with a laser. You can use the laser that you saw before on one of those points. You can stick a needle in it. You can stick a needle in it and turn a magnet on the top of the needle to generate a small electrical current, which was the original electroacupuncture. Or you can put an electrical probe on it, or even one of these pads, and then do that. So this kind of a $6 unit in China comes with a map of acupuncture points on the body, so you can stimulate them, but you don't have to do it. You can use it on muscles or acupuncture points. We have one more, or are we done?
Sure, quickly.
I know, I'm sure you're probably familiar with Dr. Terry Walls and her halting her MS symptoms with a diet similar to yours and electrical stimulation. And I'm going to use my sister who has MS as kind of a guinea pig, and I'm wondering if you've had any people use the vibration platform for MS, increased mobility.
It's a non-medical device, so I'm not at liberty to discuss that without crossing some legal boundaries that I'm careful not to cross. However, why don't we ask Terry Walls, who will be a speaker later today.
Oh, wow.
She was a TED speaker with 1.5 million views. I spent this last weekend hanging out with her and a few other people. Very, very fascinating woman. So we invited her to come in over Skype in order to talk specifically about these things, because things like MS, things like chronic fatigue syndrome, things like even lupus, where the immune system or some part of the body goes off track, those are ways of illuminating, for those of us who don't have those conditions, for illuminating ways that we can increase our performance. Because you take someone who's injured or unwell and you figure out the path to wellness, well, what we think is wellness is actually table stakes. The biohacking idea is we're going to start from wellness and we're going to go beyond wellness. We want to be at a level of performance that wasn't normal. And what Terry has taught us from her own path really ties in nicely with going beyond normal performance if you take those techniques and apply them to a healthy person.
I love that question came in, and the look on the studio audience face when we said that Terry was going to be on the show this afternoon. So once again, that is very, very exciting. Thank you for bringing her in advance as a guest.
Sure. I made a mistake earlier.
Okay.
The code for the Bulletproof Vibe is BP Vibe, not BP Live. I confused those two. My apologies. So if you wanted to get one of those, that's the right code.
Okay, great. And more information can also be found for some of the other things going on the Creative Live blog too. But thank you. So we are going to take our 45-minute lunch break. Dave, what are we going to do when we come back?
We are going to have a pretty amazing segment where we start talking about hacking the mind. Because we've talked about what you can do with the body, with electricity, with whole body vibration, with supplements, with diet, but we're going to get upstairs when we come back. And we're going to talk about fats, oils, dairy, and I know from the comments online it's been all about bulletproof coffee, so I'm actually going to demo how to make bulletproof coffee with the most foam you've ever seen, and it's going to be delicious.
Fantastic. Well, a comment that's come in from Michelle75 says, this has been an amazing Bulletproof Masterclass from the master himself. I'm learning a lot and also reaffirming things that I've gleaned from your other sources. I really appreciate how well-produced, interactive, and lively the presentation is. So thank you for your comment.
What a compliment.
Well, that's a great comment, and I think I've been sharing the same experience. There's been so much information over the last couple of days that I've really enjoyed, and I've learned so much more about my own body and my own sleep patterns and everything else and how I can correct those. So I'm very excited. But I do encourage you, although you're watching this for free, as always with Creative Live, to actually have a chance to purchase this course. For $149, you get all 3 days. That's Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. But, of course, if you purchase now while you're watching live, it's only $99, a really great discount price. And all you have to do is look just below the video feed, and you'll see the Buy button, big green button there. Give that a click, and you'll be able to purchase the entire course. And the really exciting thing is, and I'll hold these up for a demo, Dave has put together some great course materials here, some really great curriculum materials, and these are available if you purchase the course. I've only got 2 here, but there are a number to download, and those are yours to keep along with the videos. Of course, if you are following this, we've seen so many great tips, so many great exercises, the recipes, etc. And it's very, very hard to keep those all in your mind, so I do encourage you to download or buy the course, and that way you have those to watch forever. There's no time limit on those. So we are going to take a break here. In San Francisco, we're going to grab some lunch. Everyone else around the world, take a break, 45 minutes, and then we'll see you back here for Bulletproof with Dave Asprey.
Start with a simple idea. Think more, drink coffee. Stop thinking, stop talking, start doing. Hatch your designs, build a design. More coffee. Design something original. Okay, not that original. This original. Now it's time to make something. Do it again and again. That's good. Pick out the suits. Call them the creatives. Call them the photographers. Call them the nerds. Not those nerds. Those nerds. Blow off lunch. Blow off dinner. Blow off weekend. Sleep. Okay, maybe not tonight. More coffee. Build a prototype. Lay it out. Design it. Complete it. Start over. Build another prototype. Lay it out. Design it. Love it. That's good. Peek out the suits again. Why? Because they lead to compromise. Compromise leads to this. Okay, back to it. More coffee. Give it to multimedia. Give it video. More video. Never too much video. Make it mobile. Give it larger spread. Bigger. No, bigger. Make it free. Uh-oh, the finance guy. You can't do that. Pick out the finance guy. Get it online. Tweak, 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 tweak. Stop. Launch it worldwide. Call the judges. Call the marketing team. Win awards. Get real photographers. No, 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 no. Yes, she's perfect. Create a groundbreaking magazine. It's that easy.
Hey everybody, how's it going? I'm Chase Jarvis, co-founder here at Creative Live, and from September 16th to the 21st, we've got an event of a lifetime coming at you. We're calling it Photo Week.
Creative Live Photo Week is a 6-day all-access pass inside the high-octane world of photography.
Broadcast you live on Creative Live
September 16th through 21st with 3 broadcast channels
and over 30 world-class instructors. Whether you're a working photographer or a hobbyist, we have workshops for you.
You will learn technical, creative, and marketing skills
from industry leaders in every category.
Non-stop photography for the love of photography.
All on Creative Live.
We're unleashing the creative potential of millions of people worldwide like you by connecting them live with the world's most inspiring experts. That's what Photo Week's all about. I'll see you there.
6 days, 3 channels, over 30 instructors. If that isn't a total shebang!
Your head's gonna explode. Rock and roll.
Come on down to Crazy Eddie.
It's going to be
crazy stupid.
Awesome. Woohoo!
Hi, I'm Alfio Studo, wedding and commercial filmmaker. On September 4th to 6th, I'll be teaching a free course on Creative Live called Visual Storytelling, the Art of Wedding Filmmaking. On day 1, I'll discuss the essentials in building a client base and developing strong relationships with your clients well before the wedding day. I'll go over the essential gear required for wedding cinematography and go in depth with the importance of preparation and pre-planning. On day 2, I'll discuss the specifics of composition, content and lighting as we recreate a wedding scene live in the Creative Live studio. I will show you how to deal with location and lighting limitations as well as talk about client interaction. You'll also learn how to implement shooting techniques that have one purpose, to tell a story. On day 3, I will finish the course with a post-production overview and show you how to continue to tell the story in the editing process and create a finished product that your clients will treasure. This course is free to watch anywhere in the world, live and online. So if you're a wedding photographer or a filmmaker who is interested in learning how to create moving and evocative imagery with video, then join us on September 4th to 6th for Visual Storytelling, the Art of Wedding Filmmaking. Don't miss out, RSVP now, and I hope you can join us.
Hi, I'm Melanie Duncan, and on September 4th, 5th, and 6th, I'm going to be teaching a course called Unlocking the Power of Pinterest, live on Creative Live. I'll see you there. A lot of creative professionals are very good at what they do. What they really struggle with is getting in front of the right audience and the right prospective clients and customers. I'm going to teach you how to use Pinterest to build a massive audience and also to monetize that audience. On day 1, I'm going to teach you how to create captivating content on Pinterest and also show you what's working now. On day 2, I'm going to teach you how to increase your visibility online and show you step by step how to build a massive Pinterest following. I'm also going to walk you through how to set up a successful Pinterest contest. Finally, on day 3, I'm going to walk you through how to market your events, sales, and promotions on Pinterest and teach you how to use your page to build a personal brand. This course is great for anyone who's looking to build a bigger audience and get their products and services in front of more people online. We'll also be talking about how to use a Pinterest account for business strategically. Believe it or not, it's a lot different than how you use your personal account. This course is free to watch anywhere in the world live. So enroll now and we'll see you in September.
Hi, I'm Devin Duncan, and on September 7th, 8th, and 9th on Creative Live, I'll be teaching a class called How to Make Your Website Work For You. Many people have websites that are little more than glorified business cards. This makes it difficult for you to have a real connection with your customers and make money doing what you love. This course is going to change all that. We're going to teach you how to actually be achieving goals, connecting with your customers, and seeing results from your website. On day 1, we'll be covering which social media platforms are best for your business and audience. And don't be fooled, you don't need to be using all of them. We'll be covering which strategies to use so you can best achieve your goals. On day 2, we'll cover how to build a profitable relationship with your customers and how to develop those relationships almost on autopilot. And finally, on day 3, we'll be covering how to sell without being too salesy. I'll be sharing some tips with you that you have to do, but also things that you must avoid. This course is for people that are frustrated with their online presence. Maybe you're not getting the traffic that you want, or the sales you feel you deserve for the work you're putting in. This course will help you solve the frustrations and make your website work for you. This course is 100% free to watch online from anywhere in the world. So enroll now and start taking the steps to make your website work for you. I'll see you in September.
Hi, I'm Tim Groen. On September 9th and 10th, I'll be teaching my class, Sell Your First 1,000 Books, live on Creative Live. See you there. Imagine what it would be like to have direct access to your fan base, so when you started your next book project, you already had people lined up ready to buy it. The problem is that there's just too much advice swirling around out there about Facebook and Twitter and blogging and podcasting and everything else, and there's nothing to really pull it together. So that's the problem I'm going to solve with my course. I'm going to teach you how you can build your platform, connect with readers, and sell more books. On day one, we'll start by looking at the connection system, the online marketing framework that anyone can use to immediately start building their platform. Then we'll move on to permission. And permission is the way that you stay in contact with people in a way that reliably drives action and sales. And then next we'll look at content and how content can be easily produced and how it can drive the rest of your marketing efforts. On day two, we're going to continue with content, and we're going to show you how content drives outreach. And outreach is very simply moving people from not knowing you exist to knowing you exist. And then we'll talk about how permission, content, and outreach all work together in the connection system to build your platform. Then finally, we're going to bring in a special guest, Hugh Howey. He's the best-selling author of Wool and the #1 selling self-published author last year. And he's going to come in and share his insights on what he's done to build his platform. This course is perfect for anyone that's trying to create a book and get it into the hands of people and spread their message. So whether it's a cookbook or a fiction book or a business book or a photography book, this is going to help you move people from not knowing you exist to connecting with them and connecting with them in a way that they're going to support your work. This course is free to watch live anywhere in the world, so enroll now and I'll see you in September.
Hello world, my name is Steve Rennie. I am the Ren Man, and on September 12th I'm going to be teaching Music Business 101 Networking on Creative Live. If you're trying to get a start in the music business, folks, you've probably already figured out that it's all about who you know. Your network is everything. It might seem like an impossible task to get your foot in the door. Getting the right person to take a chance on you isn't easy, but it can be done. My network has helped me go from a kid with a dream at USC to managing one of the biggest rock bands in the world, Incubus. I'm going to help you identify who your targets are, who you should be trying to connect with, and why. We're going to talk about networking tools. What are the right tools to reach your targets? I'm going to talk about how you nurture a relationship without being annoying. I'm going to help you create a plan, put together everything you've learned into a personalized, actionable plan for building your own network in the music business. This course is free to watch anywhere in the world, online, live. So enroll now and learn the secret of networking, Red Man style. We'll see you September 12th.
I'm Cameron Argon, commonly known as Big Chocolate, and I'm a music producer. I started producing and making beats and songs and tracks when I was about 16, starting in like Pro Tools and then quickly getting over it and going to Logic, which was more easy for me to understand at 16. I recently switched to Ableton about 5 months ago. When I switched, it was about a 2-3 day thing until I was like, can't go back. I gotta use this. Workflow to me is the most important element in making music. If a track flows right, meaning you sit down and you just keep working continuously, you don't need to sit on it or anything, it can be done within a few hours. With Ableton, there's a lot less disconnect from music. The technology wall between you and your ideas is a lot shorter than a lot of the other programs out today. As a producer, Ableton really allows me to get my ideas done efficiently.
Hi, I'm Mike McCallowitz, author of The Pumpkin Plan, and I've teamed up with Creative Live to run a free workshop September 24th, September 25th on how to spark growth in your business. It's time you join us.